How soon can you start the talent search?
What talent search?
The TGS needs to find someone who can appeal to a broader audience. Those two do not test well outside the cities.
He's burning money again. He's trying to burn that hair off. What about Josh?
Right, Josh. I forgot about that guy. You think that's a good sign?
All right, welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Petrick and Josh Adams. From now on, when Josh is on the show, that intro will be what you hear.
What is it? Is it the sweaty carpenter that hates me?
It's part of the still that they didn't hear the intro because my recording equipment's all messed up, but it's from 30 Rock. Tina Fey and Alec Baldwin talking about trying to find new talent because the two guys on there aren't good enough. And then they say, "What about Josh?" And he goes, "I forgot about Josh." Is that a good sign?
You know, you have the 30 Rock clip and whatnot, and at times I do identify as a Tracy Morgan, so that works well.
And it came from his wife, Beth, who gave me the clip.
Did she? Betrayed.
Well, she only gave me the Josh part. I went and looked at him like right before it says the other two guys aren't good enough. I don't know the exact wording.
Oh, okay.
The listeners have heard it. Now we're talking.
I bet that she did that as I was sitting next to her too.
The funny thing is, actually, I think you were part of the Facebook message too, which is really weird.
Oh, that's.
But
fine.
it was like months ago. It was a
everywhere.
long time ago that she sent it to me.
That was good.
Anyway. The odd thing is, this is episode 400. We're recording it way in advance. I know Sean tells me not to tell him how the cake's made or whatever.
Keep breaking kayfabe.
But this is even before episode 397, which Josh is on. So if we reference
Spoiler
something,
alert.
yeah. But this is still episode 400. The Patreon supporters will get it early, and then you'll all get it at 400. But what we're going to do this week is go through our collective top 100 movies of all time. We talked about doing a book a long time ago, and we could just never get it started. And since then, our lists have changed, some of us more than others. And it's just a really random, weird list that I'm kind of dying for you guys to see. But at the same time, none of us are going to be like happy with it. But
I've not seen it, so I have no idea.
It makes sense to the collective because there's movies on there that two of us may hate, one of us may like, or whatever.
Or one of us likes and the other two hate.
But that comes from all three of us. Each of us have those movies. It's not just you. I know that's what you're thinking. But let's just start with number 100 and work our way to number 1.
All right.
Any guesses on what it is? I won't waste a whole lot of time doing this every.
I can't even imagine.
What is the most irrelevant movie that we could have at 100?
The most irrelevant movie.
Isn't that what they call the last draft pick?
Yeah, Mr. Irrelevant. Okay. Okay. Do we get to phone a friend? Ow. It's too high up on my list.
It's way too high up on his list to be that far down.
Let's see. Something that's middling on my list, maybe, or middling on your list.
It's probably middling on a couple lists. I'm not positive, but I'm gonna. I'll just say it. Kiss, Kiss, Bang, Bang.
Oh, okay.
Wow! I love that movie.
Right? Was it on your list? Do you remember?
Oh, it should have been. Maybe I might have forgotten about it.
Yeah, and it just so happens that I love that movie too. It's just not in my top 100. So
it's probably on me and Sean's, but low on both of our lists. It's definitely on mine. But yeah, that's number 100. Kind of a nice start.
Exceptional film and low on this list, I think.
Whoops. To be fair to Shane Black, though, I think that we're probably going to talk about him again on this list. I would imagine, in one way, shape, or form, as an actor, a writer, or a director. I'm guessing.
There's definitely another movie he wrote that's on this list.
Yes.
I can't positive anything else is, but yeah, that was a really cool movie experience for me. My brother showed me that movie, and I don't know. It's one of those go to sleep movies. Just put it on and just wherever you're streaming it at, wherever you're in the middle of it, just hit play and go to bed.
So natural, so charismatic, just so easy to watch.
Is it the last time that Val Kilmer was good in anything? I mean,
hopefully
right
not.
before that was Spartan. So I kind of feel like 2004, 2005 was the death of Val Kilmer's talent. You say hopefully not.
He's in the new Jay and Silent Bob movie.
Oh, okay.
And I think he's in Top Gun 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's true.
Oh, wow.
And kind of responsible for the Marvel universe, and that without Robert Downey Jr. actually being good in this, he may not be Iron Man.
Yeah, that's real.
Now, speaking of low on the list, number 99, L.A. Confidential.
Wow. L.A. Confidential. Yes. Oh, man. This movie is pretty incredible. But it is one that when you throw it up against, a lot of other classics, you pick the other classic. I get it. I like this movie a lot. It's on my list, but I can see why it would come up short against a number of different movies that I can think of.
When the pendulum shifted, I should say, from me loving Titanic as a 20-year-old or whatever, to thinking that Good Will Hunting should have won the Oscar, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was actually L.A. Confidential I shifted to first. Mm-hmm. And then as a result of this show, I said to myself, Good Will Hunting should have won that Best Picture Oscar, if you really think about it.
L.A. Confidential was a top 10 movie forever for me.
Me too, as late as, say, 2005.
I would say as late as probably the first time we did this list, top 10 movie.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But as we've been doing, Sean found this ranking thing where you create your own little flick chart, and it got hard. All of a sudden you're like, L.A. Confidential or Taxi Driver? And I'm like, I don't know. And then you throw in the new movies, Hereditary, Midsommar, Joker, if you will. There's these new movies that are really good. The last few years, Arrival, Gone Girl, and I don't know. And I think recency bias, really, you're going to see it on this list from us in one way, shape, or form. And I think LA's Confidential suffers from that a little bit. The Crow, number 98.
Sorry.
People like it.
I think it's got to be in my 30s, I believe, within that range in order for it to get this high. But that is the last undisputed classic as a regular participant on this show that we had, my choice. And I just remember the crushing defeat of that week. The not as good as I remember it, the not so much, and trying to get wife to watch it while she does her favorite thing, napping all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing negative to say about it. It was one of those things where you're expecting one thing, and it's just, I was just expecting something that it wasn't, and then trying to hold it to a standard that it's not even trying to go for. It's going to a different standard. That's where I struggled with it.
Completely ruined by, staying in WCW. Just
that
totally ruined it for you.
See, I understood that reference.
This time, I think last time you called him Gordon Sumner.
It's true, but lately I have been into looking at wrestling figures, like action figures, because of the very unique sculpts on their heads,
so
and you
interesting.
can
I watch
customize them.
There's two wrestlers who do this amazing toy podcast.
No kidding.
Just about toys, and it is incredible to listen to. It's Zack Ryder and
Kurt Hawkins.
Kurt Hawkins. Figure it out.
Do they talk exclusively about wrestling figures?
Exclusively, pretty much, yeah.
I don't really listen to it. I don't know if it's 100% exclusive, but it's largely
you can sample it on YouTube, and they've got they're actually looking at the figures and talking. I mean, they go deep. It's bizarre, like the type of head and color, and this person's wearing the same. They've got the same mold for this guy. It's awesome.
I'm so weirdly you're speaking my language right now. I have a small nerd boner. I'm just going to let you know. That's why I brought this thing so that it would cover my athletic pants.
Welcome back, Josh.
Anything else on The Crow?
No, that'll do it.
Number 97, The Summer of Sam.
Oh, good. I just love this movie. 99 is my favorite year of movies. it was the year that I learned what movies were, essentially, that they were art, not just something to kind of distract you for a couple hours. And Summer of Sam was that type of experience for me, seeing something that was so much more than just a movie. It transcended that, and just watching the pieces fall into place with the plot and the characters. I walked out of it. I walked out of that movie a different person.
And I remember talking about that on the show. It was a classic one particular week. I wish I could remember.
You don't got to remember which week.
But at the time when I saw it in '99 on video, I was like, nah, and I'm 20 years old then. I don't know a single thing. And at 40 years old, I still don't know a single thing except that Summer of Sam is really good. We went through it, and I couldn't help but think to myself, I dismissed this when I was younger. This is like great when I'm older. What did I miss? What did I gain in that time that could have possibly told me this movie is really good? But there's a whole bunch of things that are right with that.
And the neat thing is that it's not universally loved. It's definitely, it causes there's a discussion to be had, and sometimes those movies are the ones, and I think we're going to get to some later on. And in episode 397, one of those movies might be popping up. But it generates discussion, and if nothing else, and I think that makes it, that is something really cool about this movie that not a lot of movies do. Number 96, The Wrestler, Mickey Rourke.
Interesting. This was not on my list, but I do like this movie a great deal.
This was on my list, and largely because we had it as a classic, and I think Josh referred to it as the perfect movie for me or something like. I don't remember how you worded it.
It's like your new Rocky, and or like your alter ego Rocky. I mean, because there's a part of you that feels guilty for whatever reason, or at least you've said it before about, I love wrestling. Yes, I'm a big wrestling fan. But this is kind of like the true, real, wonderfully shot, wonderfully performed story of your alter ego. And yes, that being true, it was a wonderful experience to watch. I was glued to the screen when we watched it, and I think I finished it right before we recorded that day too. So everything was super fresh.
I remember thinking you were going to hate it too, and when I rewatched, I'm like, I totally forgot what this movie was. It's not. It deserves way more credit than I gave it initially. Number 95, Martyrs.
Martyrs,
Sean's Christmas present.
Thank you for this movie, honestly. I mean, what a unique experience. A movie that it ratchets up so much over time to where it goes just all out. This movie goes for it in a way that a lot of movies don't, and in a way that's artful rather than just taunting. And I think that's really what's so amazing about this movie.
I still have that. It's out of its plastic wrap. However, it has never made itself into my player. But the high praise for it, or at least the discussion of the elements of it, makes me definitely want to delve into it someday. At some point, we'll talk about what I've seen since I've last been on the show, and my sad state of affairs will tell you, oh, well, he's not going to fit Martyrs into that crap. So
what's going to happen is you're going to see Martyrs, and you're going to be like, I need to be back on the show for another. Because unlike Oldboy, it's not like there's a twist or anything like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, the show is a therapy session.
But it's a movie you just want to talk about as soon as you're done. Yeah. And those are the best kind of movies. 94, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
A childhood favorite of mine. Yeah, impressive.
Did this make it onto your top 100 list?
It did not.
Okay. Then that means it's on at least my list really high, and I'm not sure about you.
It's not on mine, but I think at this point we're kind of middling. This is a middle list.
Of all of the James Cameron things that I've revisited over the years, and we will maybe talk about that, is something that I did check out in the past few months. This and Aliens really, really hold up well for me, and the rest of it is kind of like, oh my gosh, what did I see? What did I miss? Why did I think X, Y, Z? And Terminator 2 is the first rated R movie that I had to beg and plead my parents to watch. And they finally relented. They were so worried about violence. And I think about that versus some of the things that I've seen recently, and it so pales in comparison.
Right.
But in terms of the time period, they may have been right. Just like I did not consider taking my son to Joker, for example.
While you're all looking at me, I did not either. Considered Rambo,
Yeah,
and then
that I
decided
heard.
not to. Yeah, Terminator 2. Are you at all looking forward to the new Part 3?
Boy, the trailers are so bad looking, to be honest. The only thing that excites me about it, I think, is Sarah Connor. I'm interested to see if Linda Hamilton can still pull something off that really engages me and us, and maybe does something that makes people look. Like Terminator 2, she's all buff and everything like that. It's kind of like the first time you really saw a woman be an action star to that level, right? And so if she does something groundbreaking this time, I think I'll be really interested in that. Those trailers saying James Cameron returns, I just kiss my ass. He's such an oafish dude right now to me. So
Well, he's not directing it, is he?
no, he's not. He's just involved in the story, and he's involved in producing, obviously, and him retaining the rights,
But if he
and
was
selecting
so
the
in love with
director.
it, he'd have directed it. No, I'm just saying. I know Avatar's got a lot going on.
Yeah, he's got 75 Avatar sequels to film.
The end of the podcast. 93, Babe. The pig movie.
My bad. I love Babe. I haven't been able to get anyone on my side with this one, like from my son to the show here, to anyone that I just talk about my favorite films. It's just so darn innocent and pure, and George Miller his involvement in this one. He didn't direct it. He produced and co-wrote and whatnot. It has just such a vibe to it, kind of like in the way that we talk about Wizard of Oz. It has its own thing. Babe has its own thing. Harry Potter has its own thing. It's a certain charm to it. And Pig in the City, the sequel, as goofy as that title is and whatnot, if you don't buy into it, you're going to totally hate it. But I love talking animals for whatever reason. I always have. I was a Dr. Dolittle fan when I was young, and I sat through a couple of Eddie Murphy movies too. So talking animals is a thing of mine, and here you've got the purest of the pure. So
You know what always bugged me is that Pig in the City never caught on the way that Electric Boogaloo did as a way of attaching something to a movie.
That would be
maybe in your life. It happened to me a lot. It would be like so-and-so too, Pig in the City.
Like, why isn't there a Terminator 2 Pig in the City or something?
That's funny. Babe's fine. I have nothing. Babe's a great movie. It's just I never really went back to it. So
That's okay. That'll do, Bob.
Number 92, a movie that I first saw on the podcast, and I think all of us did, or at least those that watched it, Blow Up.
Yeah, wow, huh? Isn't that movie amazing?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. It just kind of sneaks up on you how really incredible this movie is, and just the direction is so amazing, and the look of the movie is so unique, and then you got the suspense. I mean, everything about it just works.
And a little bit of sensuality in there too, if I remember, the unique camera angles and stuff like that. I was taken back by this one too. Maybe not to the extent that the rest of us were, but I think. Am I remembering correctly that there's the John Travolta remake by Brian De Palma called Blow Out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I still have never seen that. Have you two both seen it?
It's not bad. It's not
Okay.
a bad movie at all, actually. Even with Travolta, and if you can get past your Travolta stuff, this is good Travolta as opposed to bad Travolta.
Sure. And we were talking about the interesting camera angles and all of the unique parts of this movie. It seems genuinely designed for something that De Palma would be successful at.
Yeah, no, I think why it made my list, and was kind of middle of the list was largely due to the fact that I'm the one who picked it, and it just made it exciting. The Yardbirds are in it, Jimmy Page and all that, so it was really... and it's a movie I've always wanted to see, and it gave me a reason to see it, and it ended up being as good as actually better than I expected it to be, and so it's just kind of grabbed onto me and held itself there. Number 91, All About Eve.
All About Eve. I'm a huge Bette Davis fan, and this is, I think, the ultimate of Bette Davis. As much as I love Of Human Bondage, this one is the one that sticks with me because it's just so tart. It's just so insanely smart. And nasty when it wants to be, and she is just brilliant at that. She's arguably the best there is at that, at just being smarter than everybody, and yet finding a place where she can also be vulnerable, and she's just amazing.
I definitely remember enjoying watching this one. I think my lack of familiarity with Bette Davis means that I can't hook on to this one as much, say, like Katharine Hepburn or somebody of that particular point in time would catch on to me because I know her better. But I do remember that performance being very visceral and modern in its way. It's an old movie, but it certainly had the tone of being modern.
Well, and I think too, we consume so much right now. At least for me, who's not used to consuming, since as long as the podcast has been going on, I'm not used to consuming that much movie wise. So you can see something go, that was really good, and then you just kind of move on, and it's hard for it's harder and harder to have those classics specifically to grab onto you unless like Blow Up I brought to it. So the other ones, we've seen so many great movies. It's just like The Virgin Spring made my list. It's not on our list, but we just watched that, so that's why it was there. Yeah. Maybe in 2 years it won't be. I don't know. Number 90, Do the Right Thing.
Spike Lee. I mean, he's incredible, right? He can do anything, and you've got this movie is just incredibly visceral. You feel this movie deeply, and it almost makes you sweat. That's how good this movie is. You feel the heat coming off of it.
It's like every minute of my life. I feel the heat coming off of it. Yeah, I mean, I still haven't seen it.
Oh, really?
Fortunately. I mean, I turned 30 this year.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can't remember if it came out in 89 after May 1st or before, because I don't remember you talking about it on the show.
I think it was after.
Or having that chance to. So, man, I still badly want to see. I want to see all of Spike Lee's movies, to be fair. I think I'd start with School Days and then just keep going down the line.
I mean, this is kind of it's his Pulp Fiction, it's his Godfather, it's his main movie. Whether you like one better than the other is, whatever, but this is his big one. And I had finally saw it when I turned 30 for the first time, and it is as good as you think it is. I mean, all those Spike Lee commercials, back in the day.
Lars Blackman?
It feels like that, only it means something, and it's just really well made. Just a great movie. 89, Donnie Darko.
I have, I love this movie. I never go back to it for some reason.
I know this is high on my list, and I feel kind of like cool about this movie because it didn't really get a theatrical around here, or if it did, I missed it. And it's just sitting there on the shelf at Family Video. There's only the one copy, and I grab it. I'm like, that kind of sounds like a superhero movie or something. I'll check it out. And then that night, I'm calling everyone and saying, you've got to watch Donnie Darko. And over time, it has stayed with me. I think going back to it is fun to try and pick out what the director says about it in commentaries and what fans say about it, and then what you take from it. And then there's a special edition that has a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't care for, but the director really loves. So there's a lot to this, and there's time travel possibilities and portals. And so I've had some really great conversations with my wife about it too, but I'll watch this again a lot. But
I think one of the things for me is that I'm so disappointed in what Richard Kelly's done since. He did nothing.
Yeah.
He's done nothing since this.
Nothing good.
Southland Tales, The Box, and then maybe something else.
Which I thought The Box was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of exists. In Southland Tales, it's like you need to read a comic book. And I think the reason it doesn't make my list is my brother would have been the cool guy who saw it. It was like, hey, you need to see this movie. And I liked it at the time, but part of it's, is it really as good as I think it is? Every time I watch it, we brought it back for the show a couple of years ago. And I was like, okay, it's not, we were worried about M. Night Shyamalan movies too, and before he started doing Split and whatnot. And it was like, no, it's good. I'm trying to find what's wrong with this movie, and I can't do it because he hasn't done much good since then. All right, number 88, I'm going to need help with the pronunciation. Synecdoche,
New York. Yes, this is Philip Seymour Hoffman and Charlie Kaufman, and this incredible movie within a movie within a movie that keeps reinventing itself. It's just such a unique experience, and this is the purest distillation of Charlie Kaufman's genius. You've got Philip Seymour Hoffman making a play of his life that grows into an actual city, where he's actually directing avatars of himself and his wife, who are then also directing a version of the play inside of the play. So it's so inside of itself, up its own ass, but it's ingenious, and it's maybe the best Philip Seymour Hoffman performance ever. And that says something.
It says something that you'd have a great movie from Charlie Kaufman too on your list, but maybe like low. Everything that I've seen of his that he's written or been a part of, I've said, this is really great, or it's really interesting, like adaptation, being John Malkovich, etc. And I always have the choice in front of me to watch it again, but then I kind of never do. It's one of those weird situations where the rewatch value is low for me, even though I know how fantastic it is and how well structured the script is.
No, completely. And then on top of that, because of the rewatch value, not released for me, and sounds like you not being as good as it probably deserves to be, then it affects where it ranks on your favorite movies of all time, and that's unfortunate. But Charlie Kaufman's, he's just a unique artist. Number 87, Dogma.
Dogma, yeah. I love Dogma.
It was so, this could easily be in my top 10, and I know it doesn't deserve to be, so that's why I keep it out.
Kevin Smith is the wrestling of movies.
Kevin Smith pops up here at least 2 more times. But I think Dogma in some ways is my favorite, largely due to I grew up Catholic, a lot like he did, and I totally relate to the way he wrote this movie. And I just think it's neat. It's not really offensive, even though Catholics find it offensive, which I find it that much more fun. Even my dad, who's a diehard Catholic, he was enjoying it because he likes Alan Rickman so much, and then Salma Hayek pops up stripping, is like, nope, I'm done. She's not naked or anything. Josh is looking at me.
I was going to say, I don't remember that, but no, I know where to go if I'm...
Right before the poop monster. Top 100, baby.
It has to have been since 2001 since I've seen Dogma. It's far too long, and I've expressed interest before on the show about getting back to that, kind of like all Kevin Smith stuff, taking another look at it, because of my experience with Clerks a few years ago, and how that changed my mind on that particular movie. And I enjoyed Clerks 2 so much. I have a very limited excitability about Jane Silent Bob reboot, because I know that I didn't care for the first one. I'm scared to retry some of his stuff, because if this trend fails at some point, I'm gonna feel bad about it. But it reminds me of Summer of Sam. I was younger. What was wrong with me then compared to now?
86, It's a Wonderful Life.
That's all me.
Gentle and pleasant.
Oh, well, yeah. It really is kind of. I mean, it's 40s depressing, right?
You're right. It's a great movie. It's such a classic that it easily gets forgotten.
Of all of the Jimmy Stewart performances, for me to choose this one as my only representative in the top 100, I genuinely feel bad about that because I like him so much. But it's kind of like the honorable mention ones that just left off of the top 100. There were 3 Jimmy Stewart movies in that alone. Vertigo, Rear Window, and something, Harvey. So I could see anything that he's in and be perfectly satisfied with it because I like him so much.
He always sticks out in all those movies he's the most modern actor in a time where they were all, yelling to the back of the room. And that's kind of what I love the most about Jimmy Stewart.
And his character in this one, in a way, reminds me of Gregory Peck's character in To Kill a Mockingbird. And I think that's the reason why I gravitate towards this one more. At some point in the, infinite showings of this over Christmas time, I paid attention to it. And when I paid attention, that's when it got me.
85 Nashville.
I love Nashville. The experience of watching Nashville on the show was huge for me because I've it'd been a while since I'd seen it, and I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I definitely remember the last time I saw it, and it had this profound effect on me. And I've been thinking about this, the idea for a long time about the movies that defined that boomer, that late period hippie boomer area. And the way in which that generation was sort of aware of itself, not nearly enough aware of itself. But if you go, there's a weird through line, and follow me on this, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to Nashville to Dirty Dancing. That is, to me, weirdly fascinating. A picture of that entire generation.
I believe you. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Altman, you guys were just talking about him on the show.
The Gosford Park episode.
Gosford Park. And I have never seen that either. And my experience with him is Dr. T and the Women, Nashville. I've never seen MASH. So my exposure to him is so limited, but he does have a particular style. And I love what you guys said about him.
Yeah.
Which was, he doesn't really give a crap what's on the page. He just wants to film what he wants to film. And I think that artistry, I'll call it artistry, of course, it's what it is. It doesn't appeal to everyone. It's less formulaic, and that has bothered me. I think a bit more exposure to him might actually help improve my experience.
And I think, like I mentioned on that particular episode, is you need to be in the right mindset. If you even know how to be in the right mindset, which I'm not sure I do. It's one of those where you just have to, there's a little work to be done, or maybe you just got to turn the mindset off a little bit. I mean, finding that place to watch this movie in is really where you need to be mentally with Altman. But I mean, I liked Gosford Park. I understood why Nashville was good, and I actually do like when I remember seeing Dr. T and the Woman, I liked it at the time. But I think that's kind of my limited exposure to him as well. 84 Office Space. From Altman to Mike Judge.
Cool, yeah.
It's one of the most rewatchable movies of all time, as far as I'm concerned. I think it was on at least 2 lists, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Oh, it should have been on mine.
Maybe was it on yours?
It wasn't on my list. As much as I love it, I don't think I had it on mine.
It might have been on your old list.
Yeah.
It's too rewatchable not to have on our list.
Too quotable. I mean, at least once a week I'm firing something out from Milton or something about, Flair or... Oh gosh, something that Diedrich Bader says in this movie. So,
and we all work with, one or more of these characters. It's just such a fun movie. All right, Memento '83.
Memento. This movie deserves so much more. I don't think people talk about this movie enough, and I think it's probably because of The Dark Knight, which is obviously also higher on my list than this movie. But I think Memento is really the true essence of Christopher Nolan's genius as a director. You know, it's so wild and experimental, and yet it all makes perfect sense in the end. It's got a wonderful symmetry to it, and that ending is just perfect. It's perfect.
And I know that it's not an independent film per se, but it was kind of his first major motion picture that wasn't major, you know. I didn't get to see it until there was a copy to rent at Family Video because they were constantly being rented out. It was a thing that people were trying to see because it was an experience to watch. I feel pretty strongly about it, but not enough to get into the top 100. It's just it's like the coolest independent movie I've ever seen.
It was on my top 100, but on the lower end. But it's like Christopher Nolan was one of my favorite directors who I've fallen out of love with, like right after The Dark Knight, to the point where he kind of started this podcast. And even, but I say that, but it's still, I'm like, oh, he's doing this movie with Denzel's kid. I can never remember his name, which is it John David Washington?
Yeah.
Who was fantastic, an American, or not American, Black Klansman. And I want to see it, but I just, for whatever reason, this went from really high on my list to just kind of in the low 100s, but it's a fantastic movie. 82, Batman. There's a lot of Batman on this list. This is the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson Batman. Josh?
Yeah, it's because this is high up on mine, I assume. I'll just, like Uncle Jeff had talked about recently, who's your favorite Joker so far? And obviously Jared Leto is at the very, very scraping the barrel on this one in terms of favorite. I don't even know if I like it. But Jack always holds a special place for me. It was nihilism with a smile. I really quote that movie often. It just fits. And I've always liked Jack Nicholson. I did before that. I grew up having to watch Terms of Endearment, It's just perfect for me. The production design, Michael Keaton, Mr. Mom became Batman, I've talked about that movie so much, though. I feel like I can't add anything here. Yeah, obviously, it's a favorite. It's
weird because when I look back and we were doing all the 89 stuff and that doesn't hold up, this does.
Right.
Like, this is the one that actually does hold up, whereas I've been trashing so many other supposed classics from 89.
Which is the one you always trash every episode, though, do you? You haven't brought that one up in a couple episodes.
I'll find a reason.
81, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. No.
It made my top 100, but it's definitely not on this.
Before Sunrise, 81.
Yeah, I love Before Sunrise. I love all the Before movies. These movies just they move me so deeply. These characters mean the world to me. Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy are just incredible in the way that they've captured these snippets of these people's lives is just beautiful, and it's Linklater's finest work.
The trilogy as a whole is incredibly strong. You'd think that it would, go down in quality, or the first one is so different than the third one. They're all of a similar ilk, and Before Midnight is my favorite because I just think that I identified with it more because I was at that point in time in life, too, just analyzing everything. But boy, was that brilliant. I mean, it's the only one of the three that I own so far or whatever, but I would love to sit and watch all of them at once. Like, if you're thinking of watching a marathon of movies, you might go to a genre series or a horror series or whatever. In this case, I think that would be a really interesting experiment.
My favorite romantic moment in any movie ever is at the end of Before Sunset, and it's just Julie Delpy saying, "You're going to miss your train."
Whoo! It's getting misty in here.
I haven't seen it, so
it's worth it. It really is. You're a fan of Linklater too, so.
Right.
Should work for you.
80, Star Wars, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Stop the press.
Now, what I'm
He did
worried
it right.
I worry that Sean had Empire Strikes Back, and somehow I missed combining the two, and that's why it's so low on the list. I don't know.
I actually didn't put Empire on my list this time.
Okay.
Oh, that makes me really happy you said that. The correct.
Well, I had to. He did have Star Wars on his list, and that got messed up. All of a sudden, it's on the list twice. I'm like, hold on, which Star Wars is Sean talking about?
I was talking about Star Wars.
Right.
I was just talking about Empire last night with my son because he was bemoaning me looking at this list and saying, why is Return of the Jedi so high? You know Empire's a better movie. I'm like, what are you, 50? Like, you're the guys that are afraid to be seen as a Star Wars fan, so you have to have the most movie-ish Star Wars movie be your favorite instead of just letting your favorite be your favorite. And it's legitimately his favorite, and that's just fine. But I know that Empire is seen as the crown jewel of the entire saga, and that's very valid.
Anything else on Empire? All right, we'll move on. We'll be quick here. Number 79, The Devil's Rejects. I did a whole podcast on it a couple weeks ago.
You gonna fuck that chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. And when we did that episode, Sid Haig had not passed.
Yeah.
I was going to try to go back because I'd already scheduled everything to come out, and I just wasn't able to, in a timely manner, get it together because I was going out of town. But that's why we didn't mention it on that particular episode. But we've done enough there. It's really high on my list, as you know. And 78, Blade Runner. Blade Runner, 78.
That might be my fault, too.
It's on my list as well.
Oh, okay.
It's on
okay.
everybody's
It
list.
might be on, yeah. That's
Oh, excellent.
Blade Runner is awesome.
Yeah.
Just for the Rucker Hauer moment alone, but the whole movie itself is just one of the best, and I do love the sequel. I've mentioned my problem being the accounting of it, but not being a sci-fi guy, and I don't know if this counts as sci-fi. It's kind of it's a sci-fi movie. It just really grabbed me, and it's such a great movie to watch. Not being a Harrison Ford guy, it's that good of a movie. And Ridley Scott deserves all the credit, or they all do, really. But
I love the fact that it puts me in a bit of a trance each time I watch it. The Vangelis score, the sticking with images as it pans over an entire city. It's vast and interesting and challenging, and it wants you to think. It's something that Ridley Scott honestly hasn't done much of the rest of his career. This is about as abstract as he's ever been. And
clearly haven't seen Black Rain.
No, I've seen Black Rain. I heard your discussion of Black Rain, and at first, I love how, by the way, you were like, no, for everyone that's about to say it, he said Michael Douglas. He said blah, blah, blah. He meant Michael Douglas. And I'm like, yeah. I know he meant Michael Douglas. And then the discussion of Michael Douglas. But anyways, we're on our top 100.
We're going to hand it over to Sean for a couple here. Number 77, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs. Danny Boyle just directs an amazing movie, and Fassbender has never been better. This is the best performance of Fassbender's career, and the way they capture this guy, I don't think there's going to be another more definitive portrait of Steve Jobs on film.
Hope they don't try again.
Yes, that would be nice too. Don't bother again.
And then the number 76, Les Miserables.
Les Mis, yes, this movie this is a movie for me that goes beyond a movie. It goes into my very the moral fiber of me. That moment when the priest, I can't even talk about it.
I remember watching it late 2015. We had it as a kind of like a picket. It was one of those things where we assigned each other a movie or something along those lines, and I took it upon myself, and I didn't get the same experience you had, but I definitely saw the beauty in that movie. I mean, It's all over the place. And if anything, if you don't love the voice of Russell Crowe or Hugh Jackman or Anne Hathaway or whatever, they're all giving it 150%, and you can. It's all on screen.
Well, yeah, and the Russell Crowe stuff pisses me off because I think they got that right with the movie.
Absolutely. He's incredible.
If he's saying like he is capable of, in terms of like recording wise, it wouldn't have been the same. I think you lose a little heart there. But yeah, it's a...
I love Javert's final moments. That I think it's incredible. I think you're looking at this person who is just he's so overwhelmed by seeing something like this guy who he thinks is the bottom of the barrel worst human being on the planet just saved his life, and he doesn't know how to process it. That breaks my heart every time.
Number 75, The Lion King, the cartoon.
That's me. Reconfirmed when I watched it this summer before seeing the new one. Another movie that's beautiful from beginning to end, and I love all of the songs. I can sing all of the songs, and that isn't something I can say about any other musical type of movie. The Lion King is about as perfect of a movie as it gets to me. I don't see a single thing wrong with it, and it got me back into the thought of watching animated movies again, as opposed to just thinking of them as a nuisance, a cartoon that's gonna fill up the theater instead of something that I want to see.
Because it came out right around the time when we were like, I don't want to watch cartoons anymore. I want to see the... Right, so you're
it's
100%
true. Yeah,
right.
my dad taking me to a double feature of The Lion King and Angels in the Outfield, which played first, and we left afterwards because I didn't want to see The Lion King. 3 weeks later, I'm at a summer camp, I see it, and I tell myself, you're the dumbest person on the face of the planet.
Number 74, A Very Long Engagement.
Yes. This is an absolutely wonderful film. Probably one of the greatest looking movies of all time. The cinematography on this film is what stands out for me and will always stand out for me. It's just gorgeous. And then you've got a great, grand romantic quest going on. Audrey Tautou is amazing. It's a shame that we've not gotten enough of her since then.
Junet is one of the weirdest filmmakers in that he's made Amelie and this one, which is also wonderful. And everything that he does looks unbelievable. I want to say it was Bruno Delbonnel that did the cinematography for this one. He's got that halo effect around his characters, and everything seems just slightly more heavenly than reality. You can see the same in Inside Llewyn Davis. He did the cinematography on that one. Junet also did Alien Resurrection, which is the bane of my personal existence for that franchise. And I know it's not his fault, but he's still involved in it, so I have this weird love-hate thing going on with him. But A Very Long Engagement is wonderful.
Number 73 is American Beauty, and this is hard for me. It's clearly all me, but this is like one on my list for a long time. And when I watch it, I still think it holds up. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. Kevin Spacey doesn't make it easy to defend. And then, when you think about, this movie doesn't exist, the Pulp Fiction doesn't come out. So, okay, now maybe I got to throw Pulp Fiction ahead of American Beauty. And so there's things that just knocked it way down my list. But I still can't take it off because I do love this movie that much. And there it is on my list.
I love it too. It doesn't hold the same water as it did for me back in 1999 when I thought that I was cool telling my friends and parents, like, you really need to go see this movie. It's wonderful. And then it won Best Picture. And then people started, in my circle, they kind of listened to me about that. And I felt special about that. It probably made the movie stay with me a little bit longer. But yeah, people kind of turned on it as if it was, not worthy of its Best Picture or something along those lines. Maybe it's because 1999 was just, as you stated before, is such a good year for movies.
Right. No, I agree completely. And I don't even know, if I looked at the list now, maybe I have movies from 99 ahead of it. I can't remember. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, number 72.
Yeah, it's all me.
See, Josh left all the classics. He put them at the bottom of his list. Put his favorites at the top.
Once you put something up against something and then you say,
it's hard.
Yeah, I'd rather watch this one, so it's got to be more of a favorite, right?
But I don't do that every time. I did it sometimes, and other times I didn't do it, depending on the movie. But
To be fair about this, I know it's a Star Trek movie, but there's a bit of Shakespearean drama going on in there. There's a friendship that has real weight to it if you've been with this franchise for as long as fans of the franchise had been at that point. I've always loved this one. It was my second favorite, though, to The Voyage Home, or as my wife would call the dolphin one. And there's no dolphins in the damn film, dear. But this one is a better film, and it became more of a favorite over time because I focused so much on the Kirk-Spock relationship and how important that is to just a small little nerd like me.
Looking to see if The Voyage Home's higher.
It's not.
Okay, good. Not good, I'm sorry. Number 71, Back to the Future.
Not on my list, but always a nostalgic favorite.
Yeah.
Now, I'm surprised that it wasn't slightly higher, probably because of that. It not only the nostalgia factor, but gosh, it permeates a lot of things that I watch otherwise. I mean, if it's not Stranger Things, some other 80s thing is doing a Back to the Future thing. My son talks about it often. He's got a whole wall of poster and memorabilia type stuff from that movie.
Oh, it's a great movie. Number 70, The Exorcist. It's two of us. Or it's only on mine, but yours, yeah. Two of us like it, at least. I think it's I like that it's a slow burn. I like that it's not a straight up horror movie, and I think William Friedkin's incredible. 69, Alien. Ridley Scott.
I still think that it's a super classic. Interesting thing about this that you guys didn't know yet, because I haven't told you. My son has never seen a rated R film yet, and TCM Movies is bringing this to Davenport in a couple of weeks. And one showing happens to be on my son's 13th birthday. And I had always earmarked age 13 as his... We might be able to start watching a couple rated R movies by then. And he's proven himself to be a very responsible kid, very bright, intelligent, and not affected by some of the things that I was affected by. And plus, I saw this at age 7, for crying out loud. But I've got tickets to go see Alien with him on his birthday, and it'll be his first rated R movie. I'm super excited to see what happens. I'm just worried that he's going to think it's kind of lame and he's expecting it to really scare the shit out of him, and it's not going to. I just want him to be scared. That's it. I'm not sure it's going to happen.
That's my favorite of the Alien movies. I know Aliens is largely considered superior, but I do like that one the best. Number 68, Amadeus.
Amadeus, yes, a transformative experience on this show. Milos Forman. At the height of his powers, and just my favorite way of comparing people. I love looking at people from the perspective of somebody as the Salieri and somebody as the Mozart. It's a perfect movie, and it's a perfect metaphor, and the way Foreman captures it is brilliant.
I expected this to be way more homework than it was.
It's so incredibly watchable, right?
Oh yeah, that's one of those two tapers from way back when that really
about Mozart.
Right, exactly. And it won Best Picture, which gives it a bit more homework type prestige behind it. You know, I finally get to it when we talk about it on this show. It's really an incredible movie. It's
goofy at points.
Yeah.
Yes, it is funny, like laugh out loud funny in a few spots.
Number 67. Kind of feel bad having this ahead of Amadeus, Lethal Weapon.
There's our Shane Black.
I like Lethal Weapon.
I do too. But Amadeus
not on my list, but I like Lethal Weapon.
I think it's on 2 of our lists.
Yes, it is. Yeah. I do love Lethal Weapon. Is one of my favorite action movies. Just not just not the best action movie. It's my favorite of those type of movies.
And I like all of them. I just like the chemistry there. So I just kind of count them all as one. I don't know which one I like better than the other. So Lethal Weapon just gets it. Number 66, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah, that one's all me too. It's got to be.
I just referred to it just before the show.
Yeah, he actually did.
No kidding. What'd you say?
It would take a little bit of a setup, but
okay.
It was pretty amazing, though. This is one of those movies I loved, then hated, then came back and loved again because people just watched it too much, and it was like, okay, I don't want to watch this anymore. I want to see boobs.
I guess when I was talking about with Amadeus about movies that act as a perfect metaphor. The Night is always one of my favorite references. Just they never get that never say die attitude.
Bite your legs off. Eminently quotable. My son has seen it now probably 10 times because he's bonkers with that, and he has it in his top 5. It's British humor. It's inane. It's wonderful.
If you're looking for a good podcast on this, Movie Sign with the Mads, Frank Conniff and Trace Bolio from Mystery Science Theater talk about this one on their most recent episode.
Can you say the name of the...
Movie Sign with the Mads.
Movie Sign with the Mads.
They were the mad scientists on Mystery Science Theater.
Okay.
That title is just kind of like words put together. When you said, I'm like, you're just saying words. Number 65, this is a remake, and I like it more than apparently Sean liked the original. A Star is Born is on the list. Recency bias is going to be in effect here, but I think that movie is fantastic. In a lot of ways, it's a modern day, I shouldn't call it modern day, almost famous, but I like it in the same vein. I think it's a phenomenal movie. You can tell it's a labor of love, and I just absolutely love that movie. And even though the song got overplayed, it didn't hurt it like Frozen got hurt. So
I mean, people accuse me of not liking this movie, but if you look at my Twitter right now, the top thing that is actually pinned to the top of my Twitter, or was for no, I guess it's not now, but it's Nicolas Cage now.
Right.
I was going to say, but it was the art of A Star is Born, because I did an anatomy of the scene at the end. And
I remember initially, you never disliked it, but you weren't as into it as Josh and I were. But over time, I think you got more into it because you just keep showing people it. And it seemed like you liked it more and more. But you did have the original Star is Born on your list, just a lot lower than I had it on mine. Number 64, Finding Nemo.
All me. There was something that happened. We were watching Lost last night because I'm trying to rewatch that show, and one of the characters is singing in French, Beyond the Sea, and she's saying it's from that movie with the fish and the computers, and I'm like, fish and computers? What? But it's fish and it's computer generated imagery, but it's wholesome, it's funny, it's beautiful to look at. It's one of my favorite movies to watch in 3D because of the depth of image that's drawn on there. It's rendered so damn well, and it's one of my favorite scores of all time too, by Thomas Newman. So simple and it just tugs at my heartstrings.
Number 63, Goodfellas. This could have been anywhere on the list. It's one of those movies that's so perfect that it's easy to be like, I wouldn't watch it again, but it's also good enough to be like, this is the best movie ever. So, number 62, Amelie.
Amelie, yeah. Romance, beauty, cinematography. Audrey Tauto's amazing performance. Should have won Best Actress that year. She's incredible.
I'm starting to feel bad that I forgot about Amelie in considering all of the things that were in that next group of 50. I re-looked at a whole bunch of best films of all time, best films of the year. I looked at all of my notes and my entire stack of films and didn't arrive at Amelie, which clearly would have probably made the cut, if not right there at the honorable mention list.
Yeah, it was a fun experience for me when I saw it, just because the person who told me about it was into like really fucked up movies, and I kept waiting for it to get fucked up, and it never does.
Another 99 movie, by the way.
Yeah. Number 61, E.T., The Extraterrestrial.
This has got to be me because it's in my top 15, I believe. I still think it's pretty perfect. I understand that time hasn't been as kind to it because of some of the other stuff that Spielberg
walkie-talkies
is. E.T. has kind of been paid homage to so many times with a lot of other stories that it's been a bit overexposed over the years, I think. Even with like a special edition that they had in 2002 that was ridiculous. It still, to me, it's the first film that I ever saw in the theater, apparently, because I don't remember that experience. But my mom always told me she took me to see that in the theater in Rock Island, the Capri Cinema. I have a special love for that, and I wish that if anyone would ever encounter an alien on this planet or whatever, I wish it would be a kid, just like Gertie or just like Elliot.
He wants to see a kid die.
Some dudes just want to watch the world burn.
Number 60, My Cousin Vinny. All Me. Watched it actually last night. Just one of my favorite comedy of all time.
It's wonderful. As somebody who came to that late, first time, I believe it was 2016, earlier, you had me borrow your copy, and after months or whatever, I finally watched it. I have my own copy now. It's that good. It's one of those things that I can't believe I didn't see. It's so quotable. The performances are just right there comedically, and
I still defend Marissa Tomei winning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Best supporting actress.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I love that movie. Probably more than I should. Number 59, Juno.
Juno, I love Juno. This character is just so amazing to me, and so well played. Ellen Page just captures this person and makes her feel so incredibly real. And a lot of people have a hard time with the way she talks. I think she talks brilliantly. I think she's just unique. She makes that person feel authentic, and that story is authentic. And it's Reitman at his absolute best. And I did another art piece on that, like something like 1,200 words about the film language of Juno, and the film language is so strong. People underestimate that. They get caught up in the way she talks, and when really the artistry there is all over the place. It's her performance, but it's also Reitman has the language down beautifully.
Yeah.
It was a rediscovery for me, not through actually watching it, but for having one of the longest and most cordial and interesting conversations about a movie I've ever had, and really deconstructing my dislike as it turned into clear bias on my end. And those are the kinds of conversations that I wish would happen between people all of the time when they have that kind of strong feeling and disagreement about something. Juno is the film that has made that happen for almost everything going forward with me.
Number 58, Braveheart. That's me.
Yes.
I like this movie. I keep waiting for it to be bad when I rewatch it, and it's not. I mean, I get why it's people kind of distance themselves from it, but I still think it's a great movie.
Yeah, I can't possibly improve on what you said there. I keep waiting for it to suck or, show its age,
right,
or make me mad about Mel Gibson. I'm really never focused on him too much. It's too beautiful to look at, to listen to. Supporting characters are fleshed out well enough, and I don't care about the accuracy of it either, apparently.
Right. Number 57, Contact. Very high.
All me. I watched that again this year for the 20...
You have a Contact Day, right? Is that
7-11. It's the day that I saw it with my mother. It was a day that I got a job that day after high school working at Pizza Hut, and I had to take my cell phone, this huge flip phone type thing, into the theater so that I could accept the job if they called me back. So I went into the bathroom and missed like a fake CNN report during the movie. And that day was so special to me as well. My mom gave me a telescope that day. And whenever I think about that movie, it makes me think of the hope and the joy and the possibility and the danger inherent in the universe. And it really brings everything into perspective for me, like few films do. It has so little to do with the film itself, but more the feelings surrounding it, and I can identify that. I think that's why the film hasn't been as popular as I wish it would be. It doesn't hit that same note with everybody.
No, but I mean, clearly throughout that list, we all have those movies on here.
Yeah.
Number 56 is The Social Network. I think it's a modern day Citizen Kane. I mean, I really do. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about it. It should be higher on my list. Honestly, it's that good. Eisenberg is incredible, but it's Fincher's direction. It's perfection. The edit is perfect. The casting is perfect. I mean, it's an amazing movie. And I think it gets overshadowed because Fincher is amazing at just about everything,
Well, that and it's the Facebook movie, So you got that, and it's really not. It just happens to have, use Facebook as its rosebud or whatever. But
yeah, on top of that, when it was announced before Fincher was attached, and it happened very shortly afterwards, I was told by the internet, there's going to be a Facebook movie. And seriously? They're making a movie about everything, And they eventually did. Like, there's an Emoji movie. But once they put David Fincher's name on that, I said, okay, whatever. I'll go see it.
Aaron Sorkin's the writer, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. And similar to Goodfellas, probably E.T., Back to the Future, you could put it anywhere on any list. It's that good.
It captures this moment in time better than people give it credit for.
Number 55, Unforgiven. Again, like Goodfellas. I don't know. I love it. Do I love it more than My Cousin Vinny? I don't know. It probably not, but I should. It's a fantastic movie.
Exceptionally well made, and just incredible performances and deeply moving.
My wife has told me this week that she's never seen a Western before. And I found that amazing and almost impossible to do, actually, because how can you not catch a late afternoon John Wayne film when you're growing up? It seems impossible to me, but I said, then I'll start you out with Unforgiven. No, because the likelihood is that she won't like it and she'll never watch another, Western again, but I'll at least give it the best effort. And then I realized after I said that, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, you've seen Tombstone?
Yeah, I was going to say, you have to start with Tombstone. Tombstone is the gateway Western.
The gateway Western. That's exactly what you said back then, too.
Number 54, Waitress.
Waitress, yes, deeply wonderful, beautiful movie. Just an awful shame that Adrienne Shelley isn't here to make so many more beautiful movies, because she would have.
I was just thinking about that movie this week with upcoming Star Wars film, and I know Kerry Russell is... That's a completely different experience than Star Wars, but I was just thinking, well, when has Kerry Russell been in something that I really liked? And then I was like, Waitress was really good. Oh, yeah, okay. Never mind. She has a lot of capabilities.
Number 53, Poltergeist.
Yeah, that's all me, too. Nostalgia as well. I'm watching that every year in October as well. We're coming up on it. I'm going to get my son to watch that for the first time, too. Everything about it gets better to me each time that I watch it. There's such a tightness to that, and I think that it could be a personalized experience thing too. You watch it and it's like, did I have the experience of looking down a long hallway and feeling afraid of it? Did I have an experience of being stuck in a pool and then having things come up? I can't figure which one happened. Did the chicken come before the egg or the egg before the chicken? Did Poltergeist scare me for all of these things or the reverse? I don't know. I mean, I saw it when I was 4, so probably that.
Number 52, Field of Dreams.
Me.
That's a good movie.
It's a good movie. We all like it.
Best baseball film of all time.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
a ways later, if I'm not mistaken. 51, Rachel getting married, and it's a phenomenal movie. That it's one of those where it's like, Sean brought it to me, so Sean got similar to you being the cool guy with Donnie Darko. I'm the guy receiving it, so it wasn't as high on my list as it should be, but it was definitely on it. It's one of those where but I have these movies I'm so attached to, but Rachel getting married is that good.
Yeah, I love this movie. It's such a great movie, and so small scale. It captures just these little quiet moments so beautifully. And a lot of other films taking this story would go big and broad with it, and Demi just brings it down to this very real level, and it's awesome. Anne Hathaway's amazing.
I remember this experience being pretty awesome at first, kind of angry at it. I remember sending you guys a message and then being completely and totally wrong by the end of the film. It's so rare that you have a film focus on somebody with a lot of troubles and portray them honestly, as opposed to their troubles being the thing about them. Movies don't often, and TV doesn't often listen to people like that, and this film listened and then had something beautiful to say about it.
Number 50, There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, There Will Be Blood. This is a movie that I wrestled with for years after it came out and struggled with it and thought that I didn't like it for a time. And then when we brought it back as a classic to watch, it hit me like, okay, now I get it. I understand this movie now, and it hit me in a whole different way. I finally got it, and now I can't get over it.
It's in my top 100 as well. Daniel Day-Lewis's performance is definitely the main carrier of that, but there's a doom around this film, and it might be hard to watch for some people, but for me, I kind of dig all of this downward spiral doom where you just see the characters start to decay. Almost. It's
an oppressive atmosphere.
Yes.
And that score really hammers that home.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Or 49, the top half, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, again, Kubrick, it's like, where do you could put it anywhere on the list. It's that good.
Yeah.
This is the kind of movie that's going to come back to theaters often throughout the rest of our lives, I would imagine, as it already has in our lives. And seeing this on the IMAX last year was one of the better film experiences I've ever had. I encourage anyone that would be listening to this, or if you have people in your life that love movies and love this movie, take them to see this at the theater. It really takes it up a notch somehow.
Are you good on time at all? I know you wanted to.
I'm fine.
Okay. I don't want to. If we're going long, we can always
okay.
do the new. All right. Number 48, The Thing, John Carpenter. It's a combination of, I think, me and Josh.
If it's on your list, then that's great. I wasn't thinking it would be. Yeah, to me, it's still the scariest thing I've ever seen. It's definitely a personal choice. I do think there are some things in here that are super gross and cool, though. It appeals to that side of me as eternal 13-year-old, as well as real boo scare you moments and the sense of doom. It goes down the same type of rabbit hole toward the point where you don't know what's going to happen as the film ends. It's probably going to be the worst of the scenarios, but we don't know. I think it was a bold choice.
And I just love about Carpenter is, you have movies, just kind of your regular movies, and then you have anybody whose name's, John Carpenter's The Thing, yeah. Tarantino's this, Gus Van Sant's that. They all just kind of branch off in their own little universe. And the Carpenter universe, I never really got it, and some of it I still don't get, like Big Trouble in Little China. But it's the moons. Going back to almost all of them. The Thing, They Live, Escape New York. I loved them that much more watching them on this podcast than I did the first time I saw them all. And The Thing is just such a neat little. I don't know, the fact that it's not big. It's not Halloween. It's not The Exorcist. It's not these movies we all put on a pedestal. I think is part of why I gravitate towards it as well. Number 47, Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde. Yes, this is for me, very high on my list because it's just the happiest movie. It's just a pure joy. It's just pink and light and fun and sweet. And, I'm somebody who's kind of prone to depression. And so when you have a movie that can comfort you in that way, it just means something. And I cannot get over that performance. There's such a wonderfully joyous performance by Reese Witherspoon, and just that confidence. I try and absorb some of that every time I watch it. When she's that scene in the hallway, like it's hard. I love that. I love that so much.
She's infallible in that movie, and that's what I remember the most about it is no matter what's thrown at her, the cruelest words, the nastiest little assumptions about her, she still always came back. I thought about this movie within the past 2 weeks. There was a character on a show that I was watching, and he was the husband of a character, and I looked up his filmography. He was the writer of Legally Blonde. Go figure. I can't remember his name, but he wrote it.
For 46, Star Wars, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi.
Thank you so much.
One more after this.
Yeah, this is the ultimate nostalgia trip for me. It's always going to be my favorite. It really is my first event movie at the theater. I still have pictures from opening night and everything it's my favorite set of pictures. It just brings me the really warm feelings, not the same comfort level feelings that you were referring to, Sean. That I have a couple of movies that do that for me for sure, but oh gosh, and they're both on this list too. But what a fun. It's been screwed up over time. Like the special edition and whatnot adds bad stuff to it. Hopefully one day I'll be able to post online like I'm watching the original edition of Return of the Jedi in 4K and it's beautiful and I love it. Hopefully that will happen someday.
Number 45, The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
That one's all me too. It still exists in my top 10 because it does everything that I need it to do and wraps up a wonderful story for me. Very memorable characters, very memorable scenes, and what I thought was a very universally loved film at the time has come back around to be kind of a universally chuckled at type of film. I think the crowd for this has gone down significantly, and even more so since the Hobbit films came out and bored everyone to tears.
Yeah, there's such a thing as oversaturation.
Yeah.
And we did badmouth this on a couple episodes ago, like 5 or 6 at this point. And Uncle Jeff Uncle Jeff has pointed out that Gosford Park did not go up against Return of the King, and so thank you for pointing that out. It was actually the Fellowship of the Rings that I went up against.
To be fair, I have already admitted on the show that Return of the King shouldn't have won Best Picture that year. It clearly shouldn't have. Like Lost in Translation, Master and Commander, those two right there clearly should have been Best Picture, but I'll always have that trophy.
The Oscars also, they reward the collective. Jeff Bridges wins for a movie he shouldn't have won for. So they reward all three of them at once. Number 44, Clerks.
Clerks, yeah, I love Clerks.
It's similar to John Carpenter. Kevin Smith just has his own little wheelhouse that he gets to exist in, and I think that's really cool whenever an artist can have that. And because of that, you either love it or you hate it, or you either love it or you don't know it exists, I guess. There's that too.
At some point within the past month, my wife said something about back in 2016 you were what age? And I was like, I'm 37. It just some of the things about Clerks have permeated my life, including that one in particular, probably because it was your name drop for quite a while there. But it really was a special moment to revisit that one. I was very surprised. I was thinking to myself, do I really want to watch this again? Because I really don't want to go to the show saying that I didn't like it again. I'm just this guy that doesn't like Kevin Smith. I don't get it, I'm going to feel bad about it. And then I did like it, and I feel special now. I'm part of this group of liking things that people get on the side. It makes me feel a little smarter. Gives me some confidence.
Number 43, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's all me. I know you guys hate the shit out of Indy.
Well,
Last Crusade specifically. I hate Last Crusade a lot. I think it's a shitty movie, but Raiders is awesome.
Okay, is it on either of your?
I was the one who didn't like it on the show, where I was like, "This, I can't decide what it wants to be. If it wants to be the Lawrence of Arabia, or if it wants to be Temple of Doom." And I also watched the DVD copy on a 4K TV, and it looked really bad.
I had to confront this movie specifically and how much I loved it just within the past 48 hours in figuring my top 100 list out, because I had something that I really had to consider. And then I said, Raiders is also nostalgia for me. This was my afternoon movie that I love to watch and feel adventurous, and it's shot in such a way that it's timeless in a way. You can watch Raiders, despite what you're saying about Last Crusade. I agree with you to a point about how like that one would look, but Raiders in DVD for me would look like the old beta version that I had taped from HBO or whatever, I'd be cool with that, because that would add to the lore of the film for me.
Well, in not having the history with it, like not being a person who's, I've maybe seen Raiders of the Lost Ark twice in my life.
Okay.
So that does matter to, as well. So I don't want to badmouth that movie. People love it. 42 Aliens.
And that one's on me too. That's still my number 2 film of all time.
The next 3 are all one person, and then after that, it's collective from then on out, I think.
That's pretty cool, actually. I'll still say that Ellen Ripley is one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character in film. It's definitely a personal choice. I've understood through the show why it would be considered a personal choice, and it's not an opinion of the masses.
Well, no, I think you're more in line with how people feel about aliens than we are.
You think
Absolutely.
So? I was getting kind of a thought that because of the continued attempts to use the alien name in a fashion that's very divisive, that it has dampened the originals as well.
Perhaps, but I think I still say that if you ask the majority of movie fans, they love the Alien franchise.
And that makes me feel very good, and of course, I still hold out hope that there's going to be just the one more. That's all that I care about.
What you need to do is get the guy who did Black Panther to do one, because he saved Rocky.
No, it's got to be Ridley. I'm sorry. It's just got to be Ridley. He already kicked Neil Blomkamp out of camp.
I know. Just kidding. Number 41, Peeping Tom.
Peeping Tom, yes, my second favorite movie of all time. This movie is incredible. I don't know why this isn't talked about as one of the greatest movies of all time. Every time, I think it's rising. I think its reputation, thanks to Scorsese, has begun to rise, and Powell's reputation's kind of making a comeback, which is good. I just think it's so perfect. It's so frightening. It's so weird. It's so off. That opening scene is just so unusual, and the shooting style is so strange, and then this character is so weird and offbeat. There's another movie that kind of reminds me, just in terms of the odd tone. Night of the Virgin is kind of in a way similar. It just in a weird way, because they're both very unusual character studies, and they're not movie stars. Like, you don't have a star at the center of this movie, because this guy's almost a blank void as an actor, but he somehow is perfect for reflecting our voyeurism of the movies. Like, he's us, and it's terrifying to watch movies from that perspective, because you don't want to identify with him, and you don't, but at the same time you're forced into his perspective through that camera in the most terrifying way, and I think that is so incredibly effective.
I remember liking it a lot. I just don't remember it sticking with me, per se, as some of the classics we've discovered on the show. But something kind of like Blow Up in a way, where I recognize how good it is. But another film that we watched just for the show, like Amadeus, I'm gonna hold that one up higher because I had a more personal experience with it.
No, this was one that was weird because I think this was an old classic we did back when I wasn't watching all of them.
Yeah.
But I watched it. I just forgot I had watched it. And then for some reason, we brought it back and I had to watch it again. I'm like, oh my God, I've seen this movie. But no, Blow Up's that was, for whatever reason, I grabbed onto that one. I do, everything you're saying is true, just in terms of putting it really high on my list or even on the list. It's definitely a great movie. It's just one of those where when you start doing the comparisons, the things you hold on to sometimes win over the better movie. All right, the last movie that only one of us picked, number 40, Cloud Atlas.
Yeah, I was going to say, when's that one? I had to re-examine my feelings. Not reflective of his feelings on the film. Wait, yeah, probably is. The only thing I can say about this, when I was in the past 48 hours reanalyzing my top 5, do I really, really feel the same about this right now? I thought to myself, my top 5 are definitely my favorites. And this number 1, though, it brings me feelings of joy, as opposed to feelings of justice or adventure or coolness, something like that. This brings me feelings of joy and reminds me of what I'm looking for in life, which is connection. I know that word has been bandied about on the show so often as a potential negative, but in this case, I feel this one. It speaks to my soul, even in some of the more awkward moments. In a way, I feel like if I were to ever write a magnum opus, my magnum opus, I'm talking about mine, which is shitty, but still mine, would be something like this. I would want to see something like this on screen because it's just, my brain on overdrive. So it's probably going to be my favorite until somebody does something like Cloud Atlas.
I will say something positive about it. When I watched it, while not loving it, I got why you liked it. It made sense to me. But let's
move along.
Number 39. Now at least two of us like everything. Lost in Translation.
Oh yes, I love this movie. Such a wonderful movie about a unique friendship, and movies aren't about that. This movie is just a unique subject and two very unique characters,
and never goes to that like exploitative level where you could think that it's maybe gross or the movie's taking advantage of a character or something like that. It's honest upfront with us about what the characters are dealing with, and then gives us one of those movie moments that is historical. I can't think of too many more movies that end the way that it does, and it's special for every different person.
And then you have that whole audience who this is one of the bad Bill Murray movies, which I find funny. But it's also so good that I've said this a bunch of times about a bunch of movies. Where do you put it? Number 38, Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope. Or Sean referred to it as Star Wars.
I just call it Star Wars because that's what it is.
That's definitely what it was originally released as, and everyone knows what you're saying when you say Star Wars. But in justifying my choice of placement for this movie with my son, I said, listen, I know that Empire and A New Hope are better films.
This is A New Hope, by the way.
I know.
Okay.
I preferred Return of the Jedi, but I understood that depending on who you were at the time that A New Hope came out, or what you might have seen first, or what you gravitated towards when you first saw it, it might be the one that sticks with you throughout time. And I think Empire was for my son, and perhaps A New Hope was for you.
It's That's my movie. That's my Star Wars. That's the only one I put on the list.
You must do what you feel is right, of course.
So I was going to ask you, was it because it was your movie, or was it just kind of as a collective, you're just going to pick Star Wars?
That's kind of where I see the original trilogy. Nothing after that. Not that I don't like the other movies I do. They're just not the same.
We're 37, The Big Sick. Now there's recency bias kicking in here. I love this movie, though.
I do too. It's just a wonderful romance and very funny, very charming, incredibly charming, exceptionally well directed, very underrated. I don't think people give this movie enough of a chance to really sit with it and kind of ponder it a little bit.
Total perfection, as far as I'm concerned. I love this movie. Speaking of loving movies, 36. Thanks you, Josh, for knocking it above Cloud Atlas a little bit. Rocky.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, we've done this. This list has existed for a long time. Yeah. And Rocky and Cloud Atlas, we had Rocky ahead of it because Sean was a tiebreaker in that scenario, and he picked Rocky over Cloud Atlas. But now it got to move up even further. And I mean, what else haven't I said about Rocky? You know, I love that movie. It's it's in that level of those classics like Taxi Driver and Goodfellas and Back to the Future. It's a perfect movie, and for anybody else, where do you put it? It's that good, but you grab onto other things. I grabbed onto this one since I was a kid and never really let it go.
Is it still your number one?
Yeah, it's the only two definitive movies that are definitely where they should be on the list is Rocky and Almost Famous. Those two are definitely my 1 and 2. Everything else I could move around easily. And between those two, I don't know which one I like better. Yeah. I just, the nostalgia of growing up on Rocky 4 really holds, keeps Rocky there. But I think it's a fantastic movie, and I had to make the list, and thank you, Josh, for making it.
I do want to make it clear, though. I put that up battle tested against my honorable mentions and whatnot, because it was in a big pool of things that I needed to fill about 20 spots in definitively with about 40 movies. And I watched Rocky a lot as a kid, too, just not as much as Indiana Jones and Star Wars or whatnot. It was kind of like my dad's type of favorite movie. And he was more of the action film guy, seeing a lot of Schwarzenegger, Stallone in there, some Van Damme. And this one, as a result, I remembered that I had a bit of a kinship with him over that. And I'm like, how could I forget that? And then some additional memories started to fill my mind about watching Eye of the Tiger, that scene or whatnot at the end of Rocky 3. Specifically because I had loved that song on the radio so much, and eventually we got the tape of it, and my dad specifically put in just that end scene for me. He's like, hey, I got that song for you. Do you want to hear it? Whatnot. And that was such a special, cool moment between he and I that I couldn't help but think to myself, you know what? I do have a particular background with this that I wasn't thinking about as much. And I think it's because of Rocky V and Stallone's career that had really tailed off for such a long time. It became a bit of a joke, and I questioned my own caring of him and the franchise as a result.
Well, no, I mean, comparing it to the Alien franchise is very fair.
Yes. Yeah.
35, Oldboy.
What a moment.
What?
Defined this show, really.
Defined this show, but then this movie itself too is just like you have your own Oldboy moment when you're watching it. If you pick up on it, and it's fucked up.
It really is. It's tremendously fucked up,
but also hyper violent in such a way that's unnerving and a bit groundbreaking, I would say. People remember this movie when they see it, and that's kind of a rarity.
And it was remade by Spike Lee, who's on the list a couple times here. And I would love to talk. I mean, every time he talks, he goes, Hollywood gets in the way sometimes. I mean, he never really explained what went wrong there, but I'm pretty sure he had a lot of people in his ears. It's fine. It just didn't need to exist, really, is what it comes down to. Number 34, Vertigo.
Ah, yes, Vertigo. This is Jimmy Stewart and Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, it's awesome. It's an incredible movie. I
think it's my favorite Jimmy Stewart and Hitchcock movie. I mean, individually, not necessarily together, even though they're together. I don't know. Every time I watch this movie, I expect it to not be as good as it is, and it always ends up being better than I expect it to be, even though I've seen it 4 or 5 times at this point. So I love this movie. 33, Garden State.
That's me and you.
Yeah.
I don't hate Garden State. I hate all the other movies he did. Zach Braff.
This is one of my comfort movies that I go to in places of darkness or whatever, because Zach Braff does such a good job with this, and Wish I Was Here, in my mind, of capturing a particular moment in a character's life where there's kind of a seeming struggle that isn't going to stop until something large transpires, until there's an epiphany somewhere. They can't move forward because something is blocking them. And all I do is encounter roadblocks, it seems, mentally, and I then go to these movies and it's like recharging the batteries for a significant period of time. And it doesn't hurt that I think that they're generally well received, especially Garden State. And it doesn't hurt that I already loved him from Scrubs. It doesn't hurt that I love the music in both of those movies. Garden State spurred me on to an entire hipster lineup for the next 15 years.
That's where I struggle, is the hipster part. Garden State's the one I accept and I like, but the hipster part is just so, it's hard for me to latch onto it.
I hear exactly what you're saying.
32, Ghostbusters. Movie's amazing. It's the ultimate fun movie, and I think it's probably the highest fun movie on our list. Yeah,
probably. I was imagining that Ghostbusters and Back to the Future would run up against each other on these lists somewhere, but I know that Ghostbusters is on.
It's on my list and your list. Okay. Back to the Future is, I liked it, but I didn't go back to it as often as I did Ghostbusters. Number 31, the little recency bias, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Have you seen this yet, Josh?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God.
We both put it on our list because we just got the vibe of this one. It just felt it, and it's just so amazing and so bold and so different, and there's an extraordinarily high bar for Tarantino movies, and so there was a very good chance this one was going to come up short, and it didn't. It transcended in a way that still lingers in my mind.
I mean, if you wanted to quit after this one, it really does combine like all of his movies into one love letter here, and it's pretty. I don't know. It's pretty fantastic.
The weird part about Tarantino, as wonderful as most of his movies are to me, I have only seen the Kill Bill movies, which should have been one anyways, but those two and The Hateful Eight in the theater. Everything else, I've had to wait until it comes out on DVD, Blu-ray, whatever, until I find them out. And there's a particular pattern with his movies, too. They're in the theater for a little bit. Pulp Fiction was around for a little bit more. For a little bit, strong opening box office or whatever, but kind of quickly tails off. And then there's a long announcement before they tell you when the date is going to be for home video. And I've realized Quentin is involved so intimately with the post-production and special features and everything about the discs and whatnot behind a movie that he clearly probably gets involved in the release date as well, because he probably wants something special about that we might not know. I'm anxiously awaiting this one because it's out of the theater now.
You're gonna love it, and I mean, it's we actually. There's a lot of Tarantino from here on up, and it's probably a lot to do with the fact, one, it was on your list and our list as well, but we dove into Tarantino that week and watched a lot of shit, and we'll get back to Tarantino a little bit. 30, Citizen Kane. I mean, we grew up kind of knowing this is supposed to be the best movie of all time. I know since then Vertigo's like kind of replaced it, but it's good. It's really, really good.
Really good and more modern than you might expect for a 1941 movie.
Yeah, it's everybody's introduction to film as art, I would say, in America anyway.
Oh, yeah. Number 29, Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah, Shakespeare in Love. I last movie I saw at our old movie theater here was that this was the last movie that played there, and just such an incredible love story. The passion between Gwyneth Paltrow and Joseph Fiennes is so palpable. Which is weird because he's such a terrible actor now. How did this ever the weird confluence that this movie, I think so much holds this movie back now, the hatred that's come about for Gwyneth Paltrow and Joseph Fiennes having no career, even some of the backlash against Affleck even, I think that holds people away from this movie.
But the weird part, she's so good in it makes him better.
Yeah,
I think that score is one of Stephen Warbeck is the composer on that film, and it's some of the most sumptuous, gorgeous music you can ever immerse yourself in. And if you don't understand or don't feel from this a little bit coming out of it, then you might be dead inside. I mean, because there's just something for everyone. There's Jeffrey Rush, as goofy as he is, Judi Dench, her brief time on the screen.
And a bit with a dog. Such a great line. So good.
Oh my gosh.
I just remember having to, be like, look, Shakespeare in Love needs to beat Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
And being a guy that wasn't easy, just I don't want to say Saving Private Ryan's the guy's movie, but a lot of guys didn't go see Shakespeare in Love.
You know what? My onus for seeing Shakespeare in Love was hearing that it was a Best Picture challenger coming up, and I said, bullshit, Saving Private Ryan is running away with this. So I saw it in defiance and was completely destroyed by it. I mean, what a theater experience. I'm so glad I got to see that one in the theater.
Yeah, I think this is the movie that set me up to actually start really understanding movies the next year in '99.
Number 28, Taxi Driver.
Because, of course, Taxi Driver is on the list.
I wonder what it would look like today if it came out, though. Part of me thinks we kind of found out. But we revisited it recently, and with Stuber.
Yeah.
Was that the classic?
That was a weird choice, yeah.
But yeah, I love that movie. It's amazing. Number 27, Seven. One of the weirdest theatrical moments. Way too young. The people who own the theater in Genesee are way too old. Didn't even know what they were showing. Let me right in. Didn't care. Me and my friends. Love this movie.
Yeah, I remember because this is in my top 50 as well. I don't know about yourself, Sean, but
I can't remember where I placed it, but it's on there. Yeah.
Okay. About it feeling so dangerous being there at the theater, even though I was 16 years old at the time. Shouldn't have been that big of a deal, right? But no, I felt like I might be mentally in danger by watching it at some point during the movie. Especially started out with the gluttony and the spaghetti, and I had just been to a spaghetti restaurant, literally right before the theater. There's a lot of stuff in there that's shocking. It was shocking then. It's not so much shocking now, but it's just so well filmed. It's another one of those movies that's like it's got this doom feeling about it that this is not going to end well, and of course it doesn't end well, and it's so rare for a movie to take that extra step like that.
But I think Fincher is my favorite director, and this is a big reason for it.
But don't underestimate Andrew Kevin Walker too. It's a shame that he never really got his opportunity to make another really great movie.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, number 26.
This feels low to me, honestly.
It's probably because of me. When we saw it the first time, the recency bias of it, just, I was like, this is one of the best movies ever. And then it just, since it didn't stick with me, I still, if I watched it again, it'd come right back. But it's not, I'm not watching it like I watch Chasing Amy. It's that kind of thing. So it's my fault. I apologize.
This made it, I think, number 52, 53 or something like that for me. And I was talking earlier about Kaufman and the way that he structures a script and how difficult that would be with a lesser talent. This movie could be difficult to follow because so many things are happening in a dreamlike state in a way. It's so fantastical, in fact, that you might not be able to get it. But at the heart of it is this idea of regret and wanting to forget and pain. And oh boy, I think we can all identify with that to a certain extent, emotional pain. And this one hits hard.
Number 25, Jaws. Just because. Again, could have been on anywhere on the list. It's that good of a movie.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's a touchstone.
Speaking of touchstones, number 24, Fargo.
Yeah, Fargo.
This is the first time the Coen Brothers have been on here. Maybe they'll be on here a lot with me. But yeah, Fargo is fantastic.
What can you say?
Nothing.
It's wonderful.
Number 23, Kill Bill Volume 2, which actually, when we did our list for Tarantino, was like our number 2 movie. 2 or 3. We had it ahead of Kill Bill 1. But that's my favorite of the 2, and I love both of them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I have number 1 on my list and not number 2. But honestly, I know that they're different tones, and there's a lot of different stuff going on in number 2 versus 1, but I would love to watch a supercut of this film without having to change discs or anything like that and see how well it flows. I guess you could just watch them back to back, but for some reason the semantics of it, wanting to put it together.
Well, there's a Godfather supercut. Why can't there be a Kill Bill supercut?
Sure, why not? I guess at the time I remember hearing that Miramax didn't think that audiences could handle another 3-hour movie that was uber violent, et cetera, and I'm like, yes, I can. I always get a little defensive when studios think that an audience can't handle something, but then they can put out plenty of abominables each year. Which may be cute.
But it's a great movie.
Okay.
Number 22, the best baseball movie of all time, Bull Durham.
Yes, indeed.
It's on my list too, damn it.
And
Susan Sarandon made us all men.
Yeah. Fortunately, I was already a man by the time I finally saw it.
I was going to say, I saw that when I was like 26.
This is one of those I wasn't allowed to see movies because of Susan Sarandon. I could put this at number 3.
Yeah.
I don't think I did. I love it that much. It's
right.
Just when all of a sudden you got to compare it to Taxi Driver and Cuckoo's Nest and all these other movies. But I just, this movie.
It's amazing. And, like I was just saying, like, at the time I saw it, it's girls. Oh, a woman. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
And it's a very specific, it's very minor league baseball. It's a very specific type of baseball. But it gets it so perfect that
it does.
I just love it to death. Number 21, The Silence of the Lambs.
one of the greatest performances of all time, but take your pick.
Right, I was going to say which
Jodie
one.
Foster or Anthony Hopkins. I just like the quiet viciousness of Hannibal Lecter. I've always been drawn to that because it's so much more interesting than a standard villain. You feel actual danger with him, and he actually does things that you don't think that he could possibly do, and so intelligent and says things so cleverly. I don't know. I'm thinking too that this movie looks somewhat cheaply made at times, right? So it's made on a much lower budget than standard Hollywood films. 1990 is when they filmed it, 91 it came out. And I always watch this and think there's something cool about a modern film that looks like it was made in 1971, 72. I don't know if you two have ever thought of it that way, or if there was a conscious effort to actually do that, because I've listened to the commentary with Jonathan Demme. He's no longer with us, so he's not going to be able to say a whole lot about it, and he didn't say anything about the film stock or how it looked.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if he thought about it that much, but I do see what you're saying, and I think time also does that too. It kind of makes it a little bit look a little bit older.
That is true. After all, 1991 turns out to be 28 years ago.
Yeah, it's, I'll compare it to The Exorcist in that it's the slow burn of a serial killer movie, but it's serial killers are so much scarier than demons because they're real. And I think this movie is terrifying. It was one of those movies I wasn't allowed to watch, so I had to wait for it. And now, it was the ultimate pedestal movie too, and it still managed to overachieve that. I think it's one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Number 20, another music movie, Once.
Oh, yes.
There's more to come.
I mean, the connection between music and romance. This is a perfect fusion of music and romance. And John Carney probably, other than maybe Cameron Crowe, no one does it better than John Carney.
When I thought about how much I loved A Star Is Born, what really got me was the authenticity of the experience between two characters. And not only is this authentic, it's filmed in such a way, it's very intimate. And it's just those two, or just a group of people in a small area trying to do something great. Because they can feel it. And then the movie doesn't give in to standard Hollywood tropes, or story tropes for that matter, and just lets us appreciate what they were able to do, as opposed to getting our own satisfaction. And that kind of reticence to give us that it's rare, and I think John Carney just really hit it out of the park with the entire trilogy, but specifically Once.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's not my favorite style of music, obviously, but it's still the authenticity that you mentioned is so, so much there that you can't not like this movie. I don't care if you're I was going to say Lady Gaga, but that's a horrible comparison. Maybe like Lizzo would be a better one or something. Into that crap. Or if you're into death metal. I mean, I don't know how, the authenticity is definitely in this movie, and you can't not like this movie, I don't think.
There's a guy I'm friends with who
doesn't like it.
Commented something recently about, this is the kind of movie that I compare to people that like Once. I hate those people. And he's a big music guy. He is a DJ down in St. Louis and everything like that. So I just don't know what to say about that, because I have always held him as a harbinger of the correct opinion for certain types of music. And as soon as I saw that, I said, "Oh, I'll never reveal myself. I'm never coming out of the Once closet."
There is no such thing as a correct opinion. Even though I badmouth Lizzo, that's just me being a dick.
Are you saying that my fears of anxiety are unfounded?
I mean, I'll admit, I kind of, if I ever see Once ahead of Almost Famous, it does affect my opinion of Once. That's why it won't make my list, because there's that, there's something that, I know it's a good movie. I remember loving watching it, but I can't handle seeing it, ahead of Almost Famous, so I hold it against the movie, and that has nothing to do with the movie, so, so I think that's more of what he's coming from. Number 19, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes, again, Milos Forman is an incredible director. And this movie is just a director sort of following his actors on a journey. Like, maybe he's got a story to tell, but mostly he's just going to let this guy go crazy and just kind of just lead this whole story in some way, and maybe something will come of it. And I love that approach. I'm fascinated by it. It's Altman-esque in that way, that he's just kind of following his muse. He's like, all right, we'll just put the camera on Jack, and Jack's going to do a bunch of stuff, and we'll see where this goes. And that's why you buy into the boat scene. As much as people have wrestled with that scene as kind of an outre sort of thing, I think it works just because he works, and you're following him on this weird thing that he's doing, and really just being fascinated by that character. It's an all-encompassing performance.
The best thing that Michael Douglas has ever done.
Did we say that on the show?
Yes, you did. One of you did. I can't remember who, but I'm sitting there saying, they might be right, but I love Michael Douglas. I mean, I grew up with Romancing the Stone and everything, and what you guys said wasn't wrong. I mean, he went through such a period of sleaze that you start to think of negatively of.
That's what we were talking about with whatever you're gonna with the Kirk Douglas. What did you say he was? Never mind. You said it was too long to retell, and then I started to retell it, and then I fucking forgot what you were talking about.
I just said he was very, very old, and
he won't go away.
And
he won't die.
Kirk Douglas's ass.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was comparing Kirk Douglas to the knight in.
That's
Monty
right.
Python.
That's what he was talking about. He's still.
But I was also talking about. We were talking about Michael Douglas, and we talked about it on the show, obviously. And I just been having Michael Douglas on the brain lately, and all that sleazy stuff he did, and how he's like the perfect advocate for the men's rights movement, because he embodies everything that they think of women, about how vindictive and hateful women are. But they all want to fuck him. Every one of them wants to fuck him, even though they're all vindictive and hateful. They all want to fuck him, and then falling down happens, and you're like, oh shit. That guy's not getting fucked anymore. He's killing people now.
When you put it that way, I can see where you're coming from.
If nothing else, it's hilarious.
Yes, exactly.
Number 18, The Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
My favorite of the Godfathers.
De Niro's amazing. The way he captures that character and still keeps it true to what Brando did with the character is amazing.
It's a movie I take for granted. The other one as well. I know it's great. I just never watched it. And then when I watch it, I'm like, holy shit, this really is even better than I remember it being.
It's such a masterful movie. It's such a well-crafted movie. And the Coppola just has such amazing control. He's a conductor, and this is a symphony as opposed to just another violent mobster movie. He's directing a grand symphonic tragedy as opposed to just your average crime movie.
And it's homework, but it's homework you like doing.
Yeah.
It's like that fine line of just barely homework. I don't know.
If I realized that, of course, it's my favorite of the two. I haven't seen 3. It's so much better for me than the first one, and I've never been able to really put a reason on why. But if somebody came up to me and said, you've got to watch the first one again, I would say, oh, homework. But then the second one, I would say just what you said. Oh, homework. It's so much more luscious and interesting than the first one to me, which is a bit more dour and full of testosterone. The second one has the testosterone, but it's kind of with a purpose. The first one, I just don't see it having as much of a purpose. But I'm wrong.
Right or wrong.
According to the greater cinema world.
Maybe we need to make you watch the supercut. Because it starts with the De Niro stuff, then it goes into part 1, and then it all blends together.
That's right. Is that something that they ever did? I know they put it into theaters, right?
I don't know if they ever released it as something you can purchase. Okay. I know they'll air it on TV that way on occasion.
Oh, okay.
I've never actually done that. So
I'd be willing to do that one, yeah.
Number 17, Arrival.
Yeah, this movie's amazing. Amy Adams, just a perfect performance, and I still say that the Jeremy Renner part of this gets forgotten too much. He is so integral to the way this the way this movie plays out, and I love the way they position that character. It is a master stroke how he makes that character so important and yet never prominent, never forward, never stealing the scene away from Amy Adams. He's never in the way, and then you come slowly to realize just how important he is. And I think Villeneuve is it's a master stroke as a piece of direction.
I realized that I didn't throw this into my honorable mentions either, and then I started to realize I don't have any Villeneuve on my list at all. And why is that? Because he's my favorite director currently working. Right. How is it possible that that's the case? And I don't know the answer to that one yet, to be honest. But I mean, I haven't seen Arrival since the theater. I had been waiting to purchase a particular kind of version that was affordable, etc. But I don't know why I haven't revisited or think of him as much. Maybe I'll figure that out later. But you guys are ahead of the curve on him for sure.
I think all of us were. I mean, Sean's the one who brought him to us, even though we'd seen this other movie before, Enemy. But Enemy, was Enemy on your list? It was on
should
mine.
have been. I think I might have forgotten to put Enemy on my list. Oh my god.
That's really when the show went into a different direction. I was like, there's this thing called A24.
Yeah.
And now we're the A24 podcast. It's weird.
We got some more A24 to come. Next is kind of the movie that defines the podcast, Gone Girl.
Yeah, Gone Girl. Wow, what a movie. It's still awesome. I watched it again. It's still that awesome.
I remember sitting in the theater next to Josh being like, I love this movie way more than I think I'm supposed to. I hope he doesn't hate it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of we didn't really talk too much about it. We just kind of said a couple lines to each other, but I don't know. It was, and then to get to the podcast and all be on the same page, it was pretty magical.
Oh yeah, I think I had brought my buddy Chris with that night,
right,
to the theater, and so I didn't want us to have a nice connection moment and leave him off to the side, depending on what he thought. But yeah, that was really special to all come here and be like, you love it too?
And then for it to just kind of disappear, no one else seemed to. I mean, right? There's a handful of people here and there, but for the most part,
nominations, nothing.
No one else really got it.
It's true. Let me tell you this: if you go to ebert.com right now, though, and you look for reviews, you click on a review at the bottom of the page. That page seems to supplement itself with a lot of kind of fake news articles from around the web. One of them just sticks with me every time. It says so many scenes that were almost too risky for the actors, and it's got a picture of Ben Affleck and Rosamund Pike laying on a bed in that movie. I'm like, what? What is that about? I know they had a very contentious relationship in that movie, but
man, that fucking image where you're opening and closing with it, and just the way you can manipulate one image into something so completely different, that is cinema right there.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of cinema, we're 15, Casablanca.
Casablanca. Yeah, I love Casablanca. I've always loved Casablanca. I loved it from the first time I saw it to the Bugs Bunny adaptation to this. I love this movie so much. It's just again, it's romance. It's Michael Curtiz is it's just such an amazing director, and it's got such a wonderful story behind it because he didn't even realize what he'd done. He didn't care about this movie at all. Wasn't he just
shitting out movies right and left?
He was shitting out movies left and right. Yeah, he didn't even stay for the final cut on this. He never stayed for final cut on pretty much anything after a while, and certainly at this time he was not involved in it. And it turns out to be this amazing piece of art that almost shouldn't exist based off of the way it was crafted. But I mean, it's crafted brilliantly because Curtiz is an amazing director, and you go back and watch his stuff. He was always amazing, even when he was a straight up fucking murderer. He literally killed people, accidental, whatever. But He didn't really give a fuck that he did it.
The more I watch directors, the more I wonder. You
got to be a little bit of a psychopath.
A little bit. The Rob Zombie episode was one thing, but then that one podcast we both listened to when they did the Kubrick movie Clockwork Orange and how much he related to Alex. It was kind of messed up, but it kind of made me like the movie more. If that makes any sense.
I think you are onto something there. A couple weeks ago, I thought to myself, what am I ever going to, put pages to my words and thoughts on cool story ideas? When am me and my wife going to do something about all of the things that we talk about? And then I said, yeah, but I don't want to be in charge of something. Like, people hate me. Like, in terms of me in normal interactions with jobs and stuff like that, I get to a point where I am very black and white on something and I want it a certain way. But I don't want people mad at me. You know what I'm saying? And I envision that there are directors out there that they enjoy the thought of making something in their own vision so much that they don't care about the opinions of others, and that takes a certain shut off in your brain. You might be onto something there. But anyways, Casablanca is wonderful. I was trying to explain to my wife watching The Man Who Laughs, like, it's Conrad Veidt from Casablanca. She's like, oh, I've never seen Casablanca. I'm like, well, that was a really nice time we had together.
I will say, though, similar to the Godfather movies, Casablanca is a movie I take for granted, and then I just don't watch it enough, and when I do, I'm like, God damn it, this is really good. Speaking of really good and probably suffering from, or not suffering, definitely recency bias, though, Midsommar.
Yeah, Midsommar. This was high on my list, too.
Fucking amazing.
What a movie. just so bold and different and fucking fascinating. He's amazing. Ari Aster, I dig it. I dig every aspect of it.
I'm curious if you ever get the chance to see it, your opinion, because I don't think it's not Hereditary. Hereditary is its own thing. But I mean, it's you kind of, I don't know, it's either for you or it's not, but it's an experience.
I have heard that there's something of a longer cut of the film that's going to be available when it comes out on video. And make no mistake, I will be watching it when it comes out on video. It's a high priority along with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
He did mention don't bother with the longer cut.
Yeah, the extended cut, it probably isn't. It's like pretty much any other extended cut where there are scenes that you realize why they were cut.
Okay. Doesn't necessarily add anything that I would need to know.
Yeah, I mean, they're nice cut scenes, for like a DVD extra, but in the movie you can sense, like, okay, I know why they cut that.
Okay.
Number 13, The Dark Knight.
Yes, The Dark Knight, my favorite Joker. Heath Ledger is incredible, and I just think I'll never get over seeing that for the first time, and just the experience of his conception of that character. It's just perfect. He just nails every aspect of it, and he's the linchpin of the entire plot. His activity is just, he's the most important thing in the movie. But then I keep also, there's like, if I'm going to reference, when I talk about references and things I reference, I keep going back to a lot in my life. He's not the hero we wanted. He's the hero we needed, something like that. And that is such a great metaphor because you can use that in so many different ways. And I love that that's become a meme since then.
I would like you to know that quote is going to make its way back at some point during our activities today because of a thought that I had. It's my favorite performance of all time. I loved the Joker character already. And then what he did was surprising and powerful and scary to a point. I remember sitting in the theater and he gets out of the jail and his head is hanging out of the police squad car and me saying to myself, what the hell is going on here? What am I watching? Is Batman even in this goddamn movie? Because I didn't care. I just wanted to watch this guy create chaos everywhere and do his own brand of setting the world straight his way. And that was fascinating to me, going down that rabbit hole without the necessary construct of a Hollywood comic book film. I still don't think that any comic book movie has defeated that. That's why The Dark Knight is my number one comic book film ever.
For whatever reason, this one is higher, though. It's Joker, number 12. Not on yours.
Okay, yeah.
Now, before, let's we will talk about this. We have not recorded this episode yet. Definitely recency bias, as the movie just came out mere days ago. So we'll just kind of leave this here hanging there. But we will get to that one on another episode that you'll hear way before this one. So if you want to know our thoughts on Joker, go to episode 397 that hasn't come out yet.
And the reason why I continued to say still my favorite comic book movie is mainly because I can't put that new film in that same category, and we'll elaborate on that. I just wanted to make sure within the framework of this episode I clarified potential hypocrisy.
Number 11, No Country for Old Men.
Anton Chigurh. I mean,
Greatest villain of all time, no offense, Joker.
Right, exactly. Just a distillation of pure, uncaring evil. Just the randomness of life. Flipping a coin to decide whether or not someone will live or die. That's scarier to me than anything else on this list.
Right.
Honestly.
No, I mean,
other than maybe Hereditary. I mean that idea is terrifying. He's a terrifying character, and then you've got the whole construction of the film that supports him, and the poignancy of Tommy Lee Jones and that final moment that people, so many people find so unsatisfying. I think it's perfect. Me
too. And you said it perfect. I do think it's the greatest villain of all time. You could throw the Joker in there, Hannibal Lecter. I think the fact that we're oversaturated with those two, Joker and Hannibal Lecter, that this is it. It eliminates the oversaturation, which really makes it that much more powerful. Number 10, High Fidelity.
I love this movie. I don't know how many times per month I think to myself, I'm just going to throw the country A through K rack out in the street and go work in a Virgin Megastore.
I would say the same thing, but those kind of quotes are way too long for me. I need succinctness.
In my head constantly.
But, I mean, gosh, imagine taking a character and feeling like you have some identification with them, and then it gets plastered up on screen for you like that, and having it be Cusack nonetheless. And then have a supporting character in Iben Hijeli. I can't remember how her name's pronounced. How magnetic she is in this movie, and then we never see her again.
Yeah.
The music in it is wonderful. It opened me up to a whole new lineup of stuff, and the dialogue is just about perfect.
Man, I love Jack Black.
I haven't seen Evil Dead 2 yet.
Yeah. And, this kind of is a movie that turns me on to Tenacious D as well, and Jack Black is fantastic in this movie, and as much as I do not do Cusack, this is the one that I can do. Number 9, Hereditary. We like it a lot.
Really do. I mean, the production design is immaculate, and then you have those performances. The script is the tone is just, oh man, I love it. I love it so much. I can't get over it. It stayed with me even today. I can think of just seconds of that movie and just kind of get chills a little bit.
I bought a Hereditary coffee mug off your cousin. I actually think I like Midsommar better. But again, you're talking about which two pieces of perfection do you like better? And but still, I don't know. I just love the movie.
When you're like me and you become so jaded by everything in terms of just movie tropes, when you see something that is so astonishingly original and unique, and you watch this filmmaker with an absolute genuine voice, it is so exciting.
I remember having a conversation with my brother who likes it okay, but he's like, you just pulled this out, the whole thing falls apart. I'm like, but that's what makes it so great. Same with Enemy. You pull one straw. The movie's so perfect and tight, and it's in there. So you didn't pull it out. It's in there, so it works. So I don't understand your point here. But no, I love Hereditary, and can't wait to see what else this guy does.
Yeah.
Number 8, Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, yeah. Wow, I mean, Robin Williams, Oscar-winning performance is just genuine poignance.
I'm actually surprised that this didn't end up as number 2 or number 1 on our list, and I think it could have a lot to do with my eventual ranking of this one personally. So I apologize because I mean I'm now on the record as saying that that's the movie that should have won Best Picture in '97. It means a lot more now as an adult when you can start to put yourself in the Robin Williams role instead of being somebody young and conflicted and looking for a path. It's darn near perfect, which, to be honest, with Miramax stuff, with Weinstein involved and whatnot, there are a few perfect movies that he was involved in. This is one of them. I think that Pulp Fiction is one of them. Clerks would probably be one of them too. Shakespeare in Love, thank you. I always forget that the Weinsteins are involved in that one.
But all he's doing is throwing money at it.
Yeah.
Begins and ends there.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it has something to do with the marketing, okay? When you had the Miramax DVDs and the VHS and whatnot, there was such a cheapness to the packaging, to the design of that. It's almost as if they didn't care about the film. Why should I know the difference now. I mean, I can look back on it and see how silly that sounds, right? But it just seemed cheap, Miramax, in its whole operation. That has nothing to do with the quality of the film. I just wanted to comment on that because there's such a glut of those that we have in our top 50, top 100.
Top 10.
Top 10. Yeah, we're going to get to another one, I'm sure.
At least 2 more. Number 7, The Godfather.
What else is there to say about The Godfather, really?
Right. Number 6, Chasing Amy. Back to Miramax. Probably do with me liking this more than, going back to this one a lot. I think it's definitely on your list. I don't know if it was on yours or not.
I don't think it is.
But it was pretty high on both of our lists, or high enough that it did really well.
It is wonderful, though. If anyone's listening to this and not knowing our show and whatnot, and first coming to it or whatnot, I do love Chasing Amy, and it was really the only Kevin Smith movie that I did love up until a certain point.
How much Affleck is there on this list? There's a lot of Affleck.
Is this the last of Affleck, though?
Probably.
Yeah, yes, it is. Phantoms isn't on the list. Part of me wants you to go see Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back again, Josh, just for the whole Miramax line alone.
And I don't remember what that is,
right.
But
how great they used to be. And how downhill they went. Actually, is Kill Bill Miramax?
I don't remember.
It is.
Could be.
Kill Bill Volume 1, number 5.
Yes, the artistry, the incredible artistry, that final fight scene, especially the silence, the use of sound in that scene is so affecting. The patting of feet on snow, but then the slice of a blade through the air, that little bamboo trickle of water, just awesome stuff.
The scene preceding that, for that matter, is usually what I go to when I think about this film, and how it's choreographed. Okay, that's fine, right? But also, it kind of all works geometrically. Like, oh, you would have to do this in order to attack this way and this way, and it's all a little outrageous because it's meant to be a little outrageous in the style of whatever kung fu or exploitation film that Tarantino was going for. But somehow he takes all of that silliness and makes it worth sticking with, not just in spite of it.
Yeah.
Like, because of it is why we're sticking with
The
it.
length of that scene matters, like because it begins outrageous, and then he spins it out so far. You're like, how is this still going? And then you get to the end of it, and the blood and the limbs and the bodies everywhere, and it's just grown to such a level of insanity that it is awe-inspiring.
Number 4, probably the last movie you couldn't guess that you'll be shocked that it's this high, I guess. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And this is really high on my list, and it was fairly high on Sean's. This experience, I mean, I had seen it, and I liked it because I'm into dark horror movies. But, you know, aside from watching Crash with him and watching his opinion go to mine, there's just something cool about that. And then having both of us kind of, I mean, his Texas Chainsaw Massacre opinion didn't come to mind. We both kind of went to this place of, oh my God, this is a masterpiece. And I wasn't expecting that. And that moment really brought this movie up even probably more than it deserves to be for me. But it was just a really cool viewing experience that day.
It's such an incredible movie, and I still believe that my reading of the film is perfectly fair and honest, and I do think I think it captures a moment of society that, in such a visceral, hardcore way, that reflects, Vietnam, Watergate, all of that. The maelstrom of that time is captured in this movie in a way that I don't think is captured in any other movie. I think every other movie is afraid of what this movie does, and I think that's what makes Texas Chainsaw Massacre so brilliant, is that he's taking all of recent history, multiple assassinations, just the Vietnam War, this cascade of like world-ending events, it would seem, all happening at once, and he distills it down into these characters and this moment.
And I don't think he knows he's doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's so on it. Like Last House on the Left, I think they're trying to do that. And it does, I mean, it's whatever. But here, it's so honest and pure and real that it's just kind of organically happening that way. I think you're 100% right. And I think it's so organic that it's not even funny. And then on top of that, it's terrifying without showing you anything. There's so much of towards the end, it's just her eyes.
Yeah. And
that decision to shoot it like that makes it that much more terrifying because you don't know what the hell's happening. And you just see her reaction to it. And to me, it's the ultimate horror masterpiece.
It's even more terrifying today when you consider our culture, when you look at the culture, and especially the place where we go with the Me Too movement and the way we view men and the way men view women. And you take that and you put that into the context of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it becomes that much more terrifying. And you think of her in the back of that truck riding away, like, oh my God, has every woman had an experience like this? Like, it's not to that level, but I mean, metaphorically speaking, it is such an incredible moment.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about this that means anything from my perspective, because you're saying all true things that I agree with, is when I came to this, I had the opinion that it was of the ilk of Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, that it was just another slasher film. Imagine my surprise when at the end I said, oh, geez, this is a real film.
Right.
This isn't just a campy thing yet. Leatherface happened after this.
Well, part 2 happened after, Jason and maybe even after Freddy.
Yeah. That's totally tainted what this movie was.
But that said, too, they wanted him to, just make a sequel. And he's like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to make a comedy out of this. And there's a little punk rock thing to 2 that I kind of appreciate.
Oh God, it's such an amazing movie, and I'm so glad it's this high.
I was shocked it was this high when I did it, and that was probably my fault. Because I mean, that's the one
pretty high on my list.
It's just one of those. That experience was a really cool experience that it was really hard to top.
I still, it's my favorite piece of writing I've ever done is writing about that movie.
And from here on out, you can probably guess what our top 3 is. Number 3, The Big Lebowski.
Boo! Should be number 1.
Can't win them all.
It's my favorite movie ever. I've seen it more than any other movie I've ever seen, and I still find something new and exciting about it every time I watch it. It is just, for as breezy and simple as it seems, there is so much artistry to this movie. It is so incredibly underestimated. The level of detail that they bring to this is just remarkable, and they get no credit for it. Everybody just gets caught up with the dude and how iconic the dude is in his way. And they miss so much. You miss so much of this movie when you're just focused on that. It is so much more than that.
I think it's one of the only movies that every time I watch it, I feel like I'm seeing it for the first time. You know, no real movie can do that. This is the one that does. And I don't know. It's fun to watch.
It lulls you into a bit of a false sense of security at times, too. There's suddenness to the violence, suddenness to some of the quotes that take place in this one that stick with you. And the things that come out of his mouth, you can't really tell, and you don't always remember until you watch it like for the 7th, 8th, 9th time. He said this. Oh, this is actually way funnier than pulls the room together, you know? There are probably over 50 laugh out loud moments in this movie, at least. And it's weird. Like, why would something this weird be this funny? Something this off and odd in terms of its construction and plot be this amusing? I find myself laughing hysterically at it every time that I watch it, and I don't think that I watch it enough.
But that's the funny thing. To your point about people missing stuff, even if you just focus on the dude, it's a phenomenal movie. So, I mean, that is enough. So that's kind of, it's just a fun movie to watch.
Do you think there's any truth, out of curiosity, to saying to people who haven't seen this before, you really do need to watch it more than once to appreciate it?
Probably.
Okay. You say that and about this, and then about another particular movie that we're probably going to discuss here, and it's, I don't know, I feel sometimes a little haughty saying that. Like, you really have to watch it a number of times to get it like I do, which is not the case, but I do think that you need to watch it to really get what the filmmakers were going for.
Well, it's, we talked about Robert Altman and how you need to be in the right lane to watch his movies.
Yes.
It's just hard to find the lane. I think getting through it one time, you kind of, okay, I know what this is. And then it's easy to get in the headspace for the Big Lebowski. And so I think that, if anything, that if you don't get in the headspace the first time, at least the second time you'll be there. I don't think you can't not be there on the second time. But, I don't know. People are allowed to dislike what they like, I guess. Number 2, any guesses?
Pulp Fiction.
No. Almost Famous.
Oh,
Of
duh.
course it is.
Okay.
It's my number 2 movie of all time. Probably could be 1. If this movie was 15 hours long, I wouldn't care. And even if it was all fat, I just enjoy being in the world and the environment. And the original movie is, I get why it's that, but I don't mind watching Untitled. There's a ton of unnecessary scenes, but I just like being in that world, like being just watching William try to figure it all out and watching this band try to make it, and Penny Lane trying to find her place in the world. It's just a phenomenal, I just love everything about this movie. It's a true love letter from Cameron Crowe to his life, and and then Sean, you talk about that scene with Penny Lane, one of the best scenes of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else on Almost Famous?
The music, I didn't know most of anything about Led Zeppelin other than the stoners in high school wore Zeppelin t-shirts. So that was the extent of my knowledge, and therefore it was a little dangerous. I looked at it with the side of my eye, saying, it's not something that I do, so I can't access the music either, right? Kind of like Grateful Dead music. Well, the difference is Zeppelin's good, and so therefore, no, I don't give a shit.
It's
right?
too much effort to Grateful Dead. There's too many songs.
This put me on the map for not just classic rock, in which I kind of was like, that's my parents' music. but specifically Led Zeppelin. And I understand the complaints about the band and some of the songs sound the same, blah, 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 blah. But I have such a special feeling about that band, and this movie gave that to me.
Right.
And I can always thank it for just that. And, oh, yeah, it's also an awesome movie in its own right, but it just opened up these doors for me.
It's easy to get caught up, of course, in Tiny Dancer, because that is a great scene.
Oh, yeah.
But there's something really underestimated about Tangerine at the end.
Oh, yeah. And then just the little tiny shit. Like, I know that the band Yes went on tour with Black Sabbath, and that makes no sense at all. But in the scene when he's going to interview or go review the Black Sabbath, Stillwater is one of the band's opening, but you can hear Yes playing while he's backstage. And I just think that's really, really cool.
And just little, but you're talking about little things like there's a scene right after the Cleveland show where it's just Kate Hudson and she's just dancing by herself. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say anything of side characters like Philip Seymour Hoffman's
Oh.
performance is incredible. Everything that comes out of his mouth, you want more. I think your explanation of wanting to live in that particular world is a really apt way of looking at this. It ends, but you're kind of like, why can't we see the sequel to this? Where
I don't even care about the movie. You know, it doesn't matter if it's good or not. I just like watching these characters, and it's just I love it to death. And then, in a way, it's a letdown because it's none of our number ones. But our combined number one is Pulp Fiction, and I mean, we're the age where it should be. I guess it's that fantastic. It's the ultimate Tarantino movie.
I mean, if you're going to have a consensus number one, this makes sense.
I was shocked. I really thought it was going to be like Good Will Hunting or The Big Lebowski or something like that because I knew it was number one on your list and it was high on mine, and I thought maybe it made Josh's. But I was. I mean, it does make sense though.
Watching Pulp Fiction, though, there isn't a single moment where I'm not interested.
Right.
And gosh, even with some of his other movies, you remember some of the little stories more than others. Even in Kill Bill, some of the deaths are more memorable than others, and so it sticks with you more. But in this one, I don't think that there's a wasted moment. And even like the most annoying character of Rosanna Arquette's character or whatever, it's still incredibly memorable what she does and says. Every line of dialogue on pay attention to.
That's just such an interesting point because that scene works better just because she's like, you see her eyes darting back and forth, how excited she is about this moment. It makes that scene so much more charged.
Her laugh is in particular special because she's audibleizing what we're kind of thinking.
Yeah, it's... And in a lot of ways, I feel like this is kind of the movie responsible for me being into dark shit. Because, I mean, there's no good person in this movie, but Tarantino finds a way for you to just not necessarily like. Well, like them's the right word. You like them. You're following them around. I guess Jules becomes redeemable at the end, but I mean, these are hitmen. These are low life boxers. I mean, there's two pawn shop guys that are literally have a guy trapped in a box that they fuck. I mean, it is a dark movie, but it plays fun. He has such an artistic way of doing this. He puts them in everyday life,
visually uniting all those various things too. It's remarkable. It's visionary in that way. This also has like for me it has a very personal connection because I was one of the movies that helped define me as a film goer because my older sister hated this movie. Hated it. Hated Pulp Fiction. I'm like, and so I had to see it then, and getting to define myself away from her in that way meant a lot to me.
My dad hates it, but he doesn't know he hates it, so he keeps watching it. He forgets he doesn't like it. It's really all of Tarantino's movies. He thinks he's a fan, and then he watches and goes, "You guys are messed up."
There's another underestimated aspect of why I love Pulp Fiction, and that's because it allows me to hate Forrest Gump that much more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like, I already hate Forrest Gump, but I can hate it even more because of Pulp Fiction.
94 is a pretty solid year for a lot of things, too. But I hate trying to contest your idea there's no good person in this movie. Maria de Medeiros' character, I can never remember her name, and Bruce Willis says it so many times, but she's
Esmeralda?
No, she's a cab driver, is she not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that her name? Or
I'm thinking of his girl.
Oh, well, the most annoying character in the movie? That's
Booch?
Yeah, she's way more annoying than Rosanna Arquette.
Oh, well, I was just thinking that she seems the most innocent of all of these characters, and she just doesn't quite know what she's doing and everything
but that's the thing, too, is that scene with them in the hotel room. And any movie released today would be cut by like 8 minutes.
Oh, yeah, right.
But it works. I don't know.
Well, and also, don't think too long about how old you think she is. Because that gets into an ugly area. I'm not sure how old she is.
Ooh. Oh, my gosh. I had never thought about that one before.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's our number one movie, and it makes sense. I mean, it really does. Any final thoughts before we wrap up episode 400?
I think Enemy got done dirty. I think we screwed up. Enemy belongs on this list.
I had a lot of A24 movies. But I also had the benefit of taking all of your lists and throwing them into that ranking thing.
It's my fault. I mean, I forgot to just rank it when I was putting everything in Ranker.
But even then, I still think it ends up on the lower half based on our consensus.
Yeah, admittedly, it's not that I forgot about it because I have a copy of it. Therefore, I went by it when I was thinking about doing the latter part. It didn't make my honorable mentions, and mainly because not that I don't love that movie, and not that it wasn't a transformative experience to be a part of that discussion. And I always think about the ending as being one of the more shocking things that I've ever seen on screen. But then I'm like, I compare it to movie X, and I'm like, yeah, I'd probably watch movie X first.
Well, and I think it comes down to the Donnie Darko thing. You said you were the cool kid that found it. Sean showed it to us.
Yeah, so it's he owns it more than we do.
Right, and I'll put Under the Skin ahead of Enemy because we got to do that one together, and even though you're splitting hairs, I mean they're both phenomenal movies. We cracked Enemy. We figured it out to a T, and I think we were all kind of in the same. We came in with different perspectives, but kind of all ended up on the same page when all was said and done. And but I don't know. Anyway, this has been a long episode. Thank you for sticking with us for 400 episodes. And anything else that you guys want to say before we wrap it up?
Thank you for having me here for this part.
Well, thanks for coming. All right, we'll see you next week. I'm sure there's 2 episodes this week, and you get a lot of Everyone's a Critic. So we'll let you go. Goodbye.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best 3 friends that anybody could have. I mean the 3 best friends that anybody could have. That's right.